I am a foresight.
Are a foresight.
Yeah.
Excellent. And we got our lovely chaos.
All right.
Excellent.
I got my
Alright.
nice D&D shirt on for just the occasion.
I don't have a D&D shirt,
What?
guys. I don't.
What the fuck? What? All right.
I don't either. So
I'm
God
gonna
damn
step
it.
that.
Alright.
I'll step that up. Don't worry. There's some cool ones I
I-
saw.
I think it's a little of a lower priority than other things, but like I see the importance.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, gotta get that
I mean, I would
eventually.
send you some of mine, but it would be a nightshirt.
I'd be swimming, bro.
Like I said, it'd be a nightshirt.
Sounds shitty.
Oh, that's great. Oh, I need to advertise the stream in my own Discord.
Maybe
That would be a good idea.
Not a terrible idea.
And I will tag everyone.
You monster.
Yeah, I am a monster.
Yep.
All right.
They knew what they were getting when they came to the server.
It's true. It's true. I like this. This is way more concise, Artificer. So last time we went over like experience and milestones. Did we go over experience and milestones?
No, we didn't even. Well, we talked about it very briefly. We were mainly talking about like, I think we had someone that was just posing questions to us about like world building and like what to do in Session Zero stuff.
Yeah, we started on it, and then we were there for like maybe a minute or so, and then tangent, and it was gone.
Yeah.
There were many tangents, but none of them were bad. It was definitely enjoyable. What's up, everybody? Welcome. Glad to have you here. We're just chatting a little bit. Oh, what is up? Thanks, Princess. I'm pretty sure that's Manders. Hi, Manders.
Fuck if I know.
That's her Instagram name, so I'm just guessing.
All right.
And we got Shade in here. That's Reclaimer is Shade. You guys know? Oh my god, yes. I changed my name. Lol. Sorry.
Fabulous. Just fabulous.
Fabulous. Excellent. That's okay. It looks good. See. Oh gosh, that's hilarious. Is that meta? That's like layers to this shit. So yeah, we're just hanging out and chatting for a few minutes. We're waiting on Robo. He should be on in like 15. But we'll probably get started without him. I just I got recommended to start with just chatting and hang out. So why don't we say hi? We've got a new DM here for some new perspective. Foresight, give us the skinny, man. How'd you get into D&D? How long have you been playing D&D? How long have you been a DM? Tell us all the juicy deets.
Well, I've been doing like tabletop RPGs since I was probably freshman year in high school. Was when I like first really got into it. One of my friends, we didn't even play D&D. This is how crazy my friend was. We would watch anime, and then he would create tabletop RPGs based on that anime and try to run games in those systems that he created. And they're actually pretty good. Like this guy is like one of the smartest people I know. But he was the one who really got me introduced to it. And as far as like storytelling, like he was a high school student, not the greatest, but it got me there. And then at some point when I was hanging out with that same group that we would do RPG stuff with, I can't remember the name of the game, but there's this game that's kind of like 10 Candles, where it's like super rules light, and it's like all improv, and like I think you use a dice for everything, like a D10 or something, to determine like success and whatnot. And I just ran a session on it, and I had this really fun session where I did all these like cool doors, and I was like, ah, yes, I'm addicted to this. I understand.
That's fantastic. So how many years now?
So that would make it 14 years, I would say.
God damn. Very
yeah.
nice.
Now that's a lot of that is like, homebrew systems and like, rules light stuff. I didn't get into like D&D proper until freshman year of college, which was 4 years later. And then I played 4th edition, I think was my first one. Yeah, I played 4th edition, played like a few sessions of that with a group. We did that was a really fun one too, really nice group, but they kind of moved on to other things. We kind of moved, and then some of us kind of moved on to Pathfinder. And we basically from there established our own club at the school and made like this whole Pathfinder society thing that we made up. It had like
Ooh.
yeah, we had like multiple GMs and like interlocking stories between sessions and between different groups. We would run like 4 or 5 different groups a week, like just a bunch of one shots basically. Um, and yeah, and I was like the one of the main people running that. I created all the rules for it because I have like a very like rules centric mind. I'm good at homebrewing stuff.
Yeah, I know
Um,
that. I know that for a hard fact. The reason Foresight and I became friends is I dropped a 9-page PDF in his lap, and was like, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And the man proceeded to go rule for rule with the most descriptive breakdown of each one of them. And so it was love at first sight.
for me that was just fun. Like I like it was just something fun to do on like a Thursday night. Like, oh, I'll just do this.
What a badass! What a badass! All right, Foresight, awesome. Thank you so. Wait, and how long have you been DMing specifically then?
I mean, technically, like probably 12 years if we count like the weird campaigns that I ran where it was like rules light.
We count them.
Um,
We count them.
so yeah, 12 years.
Play D&D. It's like it's what yeah. It's a
It's all
rough average.
yeah, it's all pretend make believe. It's just
Yeah.
some have more rules than others.
Agreed. All right, thank you so much, Foresight. Appreciate you, man.
Mhm.
Chaos, back again. So happy to have you here. Thank you so much. Why
My
don't
pleasure.
you run by our viewers, give them a quick synopsis of your origin as well, how long you've been playing the game, what got you into it, and how long you've been a DM.
Yeah, so I started playing when I was like 10 years old. And it was a shit show for about 4 straight years of that. I got into it ironically enough because my dad was really into it, but never ever like he would always talk about it and he would always tell me stories about it, but he never would buy me any of the books or got me into like I had to basically make it all up. And so I actually like got the I started like actually getting into DMing. Like I DM'd when I was 10 and I started doing that a lot with some friends, but we were all 10, so the stories were garbage. And then started getting more into that in high school, and then that just kind of continued on to college. And here I am now. So I've been playing D&D since I was 10, so 14 years, but I really started playing when I was about 14, 15. So about 10 years, give or take. A lot of homebrew just because, didn't have the money to pay for it. And then, have done a couple of pre-written stories, but for the most part, yeah, homebrew, own rule mechanics. Really enjoy fantasy genres, dark fantasy specifically. Also like post-apocalyptic stuff. It's fun to like try to make mechanics with post-apocalyptic themes, just because you're turning the whole fantasy genre on head. Yeah, that's a very quick summation of that.
Oh, and do my eyes deceive me? Is
Yeah, they
that
do.
is that the glorious Robo here? That's lovely. I actually want to jump back. So you said that those are your favorites. Foresight, what are your favorite settings to run in, man?
Um, so I will very often default to I guess typical power fantasy. Um, there might be different flavors of it, but I'm very much like uh hmm, it's weird because I'm not just for like, you know, being able for players to do whatever they want, go kill everything that moves. I like a lot of like moral choices as well. But I like it in the like the package of we are still fighting dragons. Like I like that kind of game space.
Absolutely.
Um, and I've done like various little things here and there, but I would say that that's where I'm like best at.
So maybe not power fantasy, but the classic hero quest.
Yeah, very much Hero Questy.
Yeah, I can vibe with that. That's fantastic. All right, excellent. Artificer, my man. Why
Yes.
don't you regale the folks with your experience through the ages?
Okay. Um.
Long before the dawn of time.
Yes, yes, yes. When the world was new.
Yeah.
Back in my day, we played D&D with stone tablets. But no.
Oh, that was great.
I have been playing D&D ever since there was D&D, and even there before D&D. So, 47 years. Yeah. How long have I been I've been a DM for 45 years.
Woo!
I have played every major edition of D&D. Some are better than others. Um, yeah. Homebrew, yes, sure, absolutely.
All right, and let's tack on. What is your favorite setting to run and why?
As far as for D&D, or just my favorite game setting, period.
Why not both? Both is good.
That's good.
I mean, the bulk, I don't know. It's almost like taboo as far as for saying what's your favorite edition of D&D to play for me. But if I had to, I'd go with the second edition AD&D. You know, that whole taboo of satanic panic, and you weren't supposed to play D&D because you were a devil worshiper and whatnot. That was,
Oh, you
yeah.
liked
So
it. You
like,
liked it when it was edgy, huh?
yeah. So like, whenever we'd go to play D&D, it'd be like we'd have a code word like we're going to go get milkshakes.
Oh,
So
that's pretty. That's like, yeah, when we used to
I,
go get stoned at school, you got a code word to go.
it's like,
That's
just
like
curious, like,
Prohibition era stuff.
what if you actually wanted to go get milkshakes? Like, I feel like
well,
there's a lot
okay.
of confusion there.
So like
It's the way you
the kind of
say it.
group of us like the 4 or 5 of us that were actually going to go play like D&D. There was a couple other friends hanging out with us at the time, and they're like, "Oh, we can go get milkshakes with you." We're like,
Fuck yeah!
"Oh, yeah, okay." So we actually had to go get some fucking milkshakes.
These milkshakes are demonic.
Yeah.
I was like, "Well, we're gonna go over to yeah." I was something about like, yeah, we're gonna go over to like Ryan's house and smoke pot or something. They're like, "Oh, okay, we won't."
Oh, there
They
you
weren't
go.
those type of people, and I'm like, "Whew, okay."
Throw in the drugs so they don't think you're playing D&D.
That's
I
it's
love it.
sad.
I
It's
love
It's
it.
the
sad
way to
but
do it.
true.
It's the way to
It's
do it.
sad but
That
true.
is the way to do it.
But I really liked. I mean, there's so many good systems. Chaosium has a lot of good systems. Rifts is a lot of good systems. Kevin has put out a bunch of good stuff. Savage. I mean, yeah. I can go down the list of like
All
a
right.
lot of good
Narrow it down,
usage.
because I know you've been around the block a few thousand times. So hit me with your favorite one.
I'm gonna have to say, favorite ones I ever played. Rifts is really good. And another kind of like dark horse one is Dusk City Outlaws.
I don't know what either of those are.
Mm,
You,
then you
can you
shall
give me
have to.
like can you give me like a brief synopsis?
Uh, yeah. So Rifts is kind of a multi-universal multiverse.
Okay.
So they have like undead, robotics, fantasy, supernatural, superhero. So yeah, there's like a setting for like every kind of play that you would want, even like a fantasy setting. So
Excellent. All right, and the Dusk City?
oh, the Dusk City Outlaws are um, it's a board game of where you're actually part of a crime family and you're in Dusk City and you go to pull jobs. And throughout the whole um, adventure, you could call it, or mission, you can gain or reduce heat of what you are able to do. Um, like that's one of the places where the old rule of "Hey, I know a guy" that's actually really a thing in that game.
That's one of my favorite rules.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, cool. We got a feel for you, and now the Robo has come.
What's up? Hi, everybody.
He's here. He's here.
I'm finally here. Yeah, no, I'm doing good.
How was work today?
Well, it was great. You know, I always love working a split shift that pretty much carries over into just a straight up
A
double.
double. Oof.
Um,
We
Oof.
do love
Nice.
that.
Hey,
especially when I wake up in the morning, go do a super intense workout with you, and then also end an 18-hour fast in the same day. Just tired. That's what I am.
I'm proud of you, brother. I'm proud of you. You're doing good, man. That discipline's top notch. Can I also say thank you so much for lunch today? Robo hooked me and the family up with some free meals from his place of work that he's quitting soon. So big thank
Yeah,
you there, buddy. It was delicious.
no problem. Pokeballs, you gotta get them while you can.
Oh, bro, they were banging.
Banging.
Yeah, it was good. So, Robo, we're going around the room, and we're just kind of giving the viewers a little taste of who everybody is. We've got Foresight joining us here tonight, which thank you so
Ooh,
much,
what's up,
Foresight.
Foresight?
We've got Chaos Feared. We've got the main man Artificer, and now let's hit you, brother. Why don't you give
Hey.
us a little dip into your backstory? What got you into D&D? Why do you love it? And just so everyone knows, Robo is our player perspective here. He's our guy that's kind of giving us a little outside looking in view. So yeah, lay it on us, brother. Oh yeah, lay it on us. Do it up.
So what player perspective means is I'm the only one here too dumb to DM. So you had to get some normal people brains in here.
It's one way to put it.
I disagree with that interpretation, but continue, please.
Yeah, not
Um,
everyone who DMs is smart. Prime example.
Yeah, fucking same here.
So I got into Dungeons and Dragons in college, really. Friend of mine was like, hey, let's you want to play some Dungeons and Dragons? And I was like, yes. My whole growing up, it had been like painted as this like akin to Ouija boards and like this like taboo thing that could summon demons, like Artificer was speaking about. And I was like,
Gotta
oh,
kind of, yeah.
gotta stay away from that. And then I got into college and I was like, you know what? That sounds like a lot of bullshit to me. I'm gonna
Demons
try
sound pretty cool now that I'm older.
it. And of course, a girl invited me, so I'm not.
Oh yeah,
complaining.
no, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Say less,
Hello.
brother. We
Hello.
understand.
Yeah. So I go to play and I make a character. We get a session. Basically, we just made characters, and we got a little bit of a session 0 in. I come to do the next session. Only like 2 people besides the DM and me showed up out of the group of like 6. And so we're like, okay, uh, maybe you give it a try. We did like a first session and then it disbanded pretty quick. Something happened with the DM and then they weren't gonna do it anymore. And I was like, all right, well, I'm just gonna go do other things. I'm gonna go back to uh, doing college stuff. That's about as far as I'll get into that. But later,
Yeah.
after college, my brother, Firestone DM, was trying to get a session going. And I was like, all right, fuck it. I've played D&D before. I hadn't played D&D before. I thought I'd played D&D before. I was like, I'll give it a try. And it was a ton of fun, and he got me into it. I've been a player for his campaigns for a long time now. Cabbage Man is our other who's been around. Cabbage Man's our other DM, and then I met Sev here, Mr. Fast Hands, and found out he liked D&D, and then been playing Eltigrad. It was great. Yeah, and that's my experience with D&D. I've been playing for a couple years now, like I think 4 years now.
Awesome, man. Yeah. So in all that time, what's been your favorite setting that you've played in?
I've played in a historical fiction of Russia in the year 1900 during the Bolshevik Revolution,
I
where
remember you guys mentioning this last time. Yeah.
where
That
Rasputin was rising to power.
That's pretty cool. All right. So that's been your favorite so far. That is awesome, and I love it.
It was really
You
cool.
regaled me with some of those tales, and I find them fantastic. All right, and then I guess I'll throw out my history real quick just to give you guys all a taste. So I started reading the Legends of Dritz and like Forgotten Realms books when I was about 14 years old, but I did not start playing D&D until I was 29. We actually this last weekend was the anniversary of me being a player, and next weekend's the anniversary of me being a DM. So 1 year. That's where I'm at. My best friend Jammy, he's in our Discord server. He basically hit me up one day and he was like, "Yo, I've been playing D&D with some of my coworkers," and I was just like, "Yo, bro, like, get me in that, man. What's up? Hook it up. Let's go." And so he DM'd a session for me, even though he detests it. I think he did a great job, for the record. And as Artificer often says, first hit's free. And then I was hooked to the clickety clack rocks. And yeah, I started DMing because in our group we didn't really have anyone who was serious about DMing, and I realized that if I wanted to play the kind of game that I wanted to play, I was just gonna have to run it. That's about it for me. Then let's see. Artificer over here pushed me into putting some content on YouTube, and Robo here pushed me into getting on stream, and so that's how we got here. And now we get to hang out with all you lovely folks and chat about some D&D. On that note, I think we're about to get into our topics. Robo, how do I switch topics from just chatting over to Dungeons and Dragons?
Oh boy,
midstream.
you're gonna go into Streamlabs, which I'm sure you already have open.
I certainly do.
All right, and then you're gonna see, I believe it's at the top right, what looks like a little pencil or an edit button.
Oh, look at that. So
You're
simple.
gonna click on that.
Dang, if only I had known. Wait, no, come back.
Did you get it?
Yeah, it just doesn't want to pop up. We'll be popping over there in just a minute. Please, everyone in the chat, throw down questions for us to answer. We are here to interact with you and to hang out. All right, I have updated it. We are now officially in the Dungeons and Dragons, and I can close that. I have a list of topics that we're going to go over. Our primary goal here is to educate PMs on how to run a session 0, and we've got a wealth of experience, wealth of knowledge, and then there's me and Robo. I had to drag you under the bus with me. Sorry.
Hey, listen, I would have done it. I would have dragged myself under the bus if you hadn't. So feel free.
So last time, if you were with us, we went over a few things. We went over some basic player etiquette, I believe. We went over world building. Help me out, guys. Here, we hit a lot of topics. We were streaming for like 2 hours.
Yeah, we did world building. We talked about like how to basically run a session 0, like specifically what you like to talk about during a session 0, and like we all had different perspectives, things that we like to prioritize.
Expectations, I believe.
Expectations was a big thing. Yeah, we talked about that. I mean, fuck, I know we can tap into that a lot more if we wanted to, but yeah, we talked a lot about expectations.
Absolutely. I think we went over some substances as well at the table.
Yeah.
And a few other things.
Exactly. How certain rules you want at your table. Pretty much like I would say the general thing that we kind of went over is what everybody would think like a social contract, I guess you could
Yeah.
kind of like what you want to say in the with your game and not in your game.
And that's important because really when you sit down at the table, you are entering into a social contract with everyone there before you. And so you have to move forward with respect, courtesy, and understanding. All right, excellent. Let's dive in a little bit. Let's see. All right, I think we have. Why don't we start off with this? Cell phones and digital devices. Do you allow them at your table? Do they need to be left in a basket at the door? If you do allow them, what happens when a player gets a call they must take? Do you allow headphones at your table? Should there be consequences for when this becomes a problem? If so, what are the consequences? You know, touch on whatever you feel you need to as much as you need to, and we're gonna start out with our man Foresight.
Hmm. So I've never had to ban phones at the table. It's never been a super big problem. Just because I think the groups that I've been like playing with, they're busy people and their time is limited, and they're on their phones all the time. And so I don't think they're gonna spend. Yeah, they're not gonna spend their precious D&D time the few times a week they actually get to like role play and be like a fantasy hero. They're not gonna use that on their phone a lot of the time.
You were with
Um,
people who cared.
yes. I have had a couple issues a couple times, but it's never been anything I couldn't like talk to my players about. And I think that's kind of important if you can have good communication with your players and be like, hey, we're doing this whole thing, we're doing this collective storytelling, but I feel like I'm bearing a lot of the work because you guys are on your phones and I just really need more attention to be at the table.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, having good communication with your players solves 90% of the problems that arise in D&D, I find. Awesome. Anything else on that topic, Foresight?
Mm, Nothing in particular, although I will say that um in terms of like on the GM side of things, I think I've almost always used a combination of like notebooks and electronic stuff on the computer. Um, I don't know. I just have a really weird way I do GMing when I'm actually behind the GM screen. And I just flip flop around whatever's closest at hand a lot of the time.
That's fair. That's fair. You know, for me, the question's a little bit hard. It's. I don't want to say antiquated, but I was raised in the digital era, in the post-COVID world of Dungeons and Dragons. So I've played one in-person session with Robo and Firestone. Um, so it's a necessity to have
Yeah.
headphones and digital devices. Again, I've been fortunate, like yourself, to have players who really cared and were invested. So it hasn't been an issue for myself either. Chaos, how about you, man?
I'm a big believer of as long as you can prove to me that you're able to be responsible with something, and as long as you're acting appropriate, I don't care. I definitely headphones wise, I've never let headphones at my table, but I've also never needed to say that. Like if someone pulled out headphones and was like listening to music while we were doing, I would just be like, hey, take those the fuck out. Like we're not doing that. Like um, but I've never run into that before. I have a couple of times run into someone who is on their phone too much. And I have a nice little test where like when there's scene expansion or conversations with an NPC going on, I always like to make eye contact with my players. I like actually like talk to them as much as I can and like look at them. And if they're not making eye contact with me, I have like a 30-second rule where if they are not making consistent eye contact with me, I'm like, hey, like, are you distracted? Like, is something okay? Like, what's going on? And if it continues, then like after the session, I'll be like, hey, like, because a lot of the times, if you have difficulty with eye contact, that's one thing, but like, you can kind of tell when they're doing something else. So I'll pull them aside the first time, be like, hey, if it's an emergency, obviously, go ahead, take that call, do whatever you need to do. I'm not going to stop that. But like, I'm dedicating my time to this. You're dedicating your time to this. Let's give it a certain amount of respect. Like, you're committing something. Like as Artificer said earlier, it's a social construct or contract.
Contract.
Contract. Yeah.
Track. You got it. You got
It's
it.
definitely social. Definitely social.
It's definitely social.
Unique New
I got
York.
the social part. I got the social part.
Unique New York. Unique New
Yeah.
York.
Thank you. But yeah, that's kind of where I stand now. I'm the
Man,
big.
that's what we should have done is warmed up the voice.
Oh my god, that would have been so great.
Next stream, we're learning, guys. We're learning. Next stream, we'll do that.
Just chatting, voiceover, warm up. Okay, let's do that.
That's right.
Beautiful, awesome.
That's all I got. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Chaos. Appreciate
Of course.
you.
Getting coffee.
And Artificer, my man. So how about you? I think you've probably played the most at-table in-person games here. How much trouble have you run into with this, and how have you handled it?
I mean, like, electronics weren't a thing until like mid to late 90s. So really wasn't a concern
I hear
then.
chaos laughing in the background.
Me too. But yeah, I mean, yeah. So like to mid late '90s, then electronics kind of became a thing. Which I mean, when cell phones like first came out and you could like actually afford one that didn't cost you like a small car worth of payments. Um, they
Yeah,
were really difficult.
$4,000 for a cell phone, I think was the first when the first cell
Yeah,
phone dropped in the 80s.
yeah, man. Woo,
Woo!
bag phones. Yeah, okay, throwback. All right, um, yeah, but like pretty much anymore. I like electronics as somebody that travels around to conventions 42 weeks out of the year. Um, yeah, I much rather take my tablet that I have than let's see, what edition? We're on fifth edition now, and there's probably 47 books. Yeah, I'd rather take a tablet and then carry around 47 books for 4 to 8 hours a day, not including the
I'm
dice.
hearing
Oh, oh, did we lose chaos? Is that just me?
Books.
Oop, oop. I think my connection fudged up there for a minute. Chaos and I couldn't hear you guys.
Oh, we can hear each other.
I said something profoundly funny. Don't worry about it.
I laughed.
Yeah.
Well, fuck. All right.
And I did not. So anyway, no.
All right, excellent. And then let's jump over to our man Robo. Robo, have you ever had this problem at the table with yourself or other players?
Oh yeah.
Oh, ooh,
when I
juicy, juicy. Let's do it.
yeah, we're about to dish the dirt. I wish Firestone was here so I could dish the dirt.
He told me that he had some quality time with the wifey he needed to catch up on.
Yeah.
So we generously excused him of his duties and brought in a substitute.
Gotcha. I don't think of you as a substitute, by the way. Just wanted to put that out there. Yeah, we've had a lot of problems with that. Problems is a strong word. With myself, I definitely have an issue with staying focused sometimes, where I need to be doing something else with my hands, needing to be doing something else at the same time to really to be able to focus on something. Call it ADHD, call it just a lot of energy, whatever. Definitely.
That's textbook ADHD.
So
but yeah.
you're telling me that you're the culprit?
No, I'm not the culprit anymore. I have, through a lot of personal growth, learned how to sit still, for the most part. Uh, there's other people who struggle with focusing without doing something else at the same time. They'll be on their phones. You'll catch Firestone on his phone, especially in a bigger group, or if the party's split and there's nothing for you to do at that moment except for listen to what's happening with the other people. You'll catch people like looking at their phones or like playing a game or something like that. And in all honesty, like I understand wanting to stay completely focused as a group and making sure we're all there. But this whole like over Discord playing, this whole playing over technology is something I'm wholly unfamiliar with. I'm, for the vast majority of my experience, have played in person. So I've never really had the issue of like somebody completely not paying attention because they're always in the same room. You can see them, you know.
That makes sense, yeah.
But Firestone is a teacher,
Mhm.
and he teaches little kids. So when this has been an issue as well is when he sees somebody on their phone and he like calls them out there. You see the teacher come out of him, and then I'm like,
I noticed
hey.
that. I noticed that when I was playing with the session, there was a few moments where he was just like, did the classic teacher like, I'm gonna be silent and wait until you guys are done, and you're gonna know that I'm waiting right now. It's that like, yeah. That was intense.
Exactly. And there's times when I'm like, okay, well, I understand that we have some younger people. When I say younger, I mean like 19, 20, who are playing. But then there's people like me and and Cabbage Man who are a little older, and it's like, oh, if you talk to me like I'm one of your students again, we're gonna have a problem. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta treat me like an adult. If you catch me on my phone, just say something, but don't you like. There's just an issue with that. So how you deal with it, I think, super important. Keeping in mind that okay, this is an adult human being who probably has other things going on. They might be responding to an email, it might be work related. It could be, you know, their like a family issue or something that they're trying to deal with. So not like overreacting is super important. But if somebody's like on their tablet drawing while we're trying to play D&D, it can definitely come off as disrespectful to the DM.
Absolutely.
You're not paying
100%.
attention anymore. You're not wholly invested.
Ah.
Well,
It just comes
I
off as rude.
I would like to interject and say that
Please do.
yeah, I personally have that same mentality where if I am going to be giving my all in a session, I need to be paying full attention. If I'm focused on something else, I'm not going to be giving it, all of my attention.
Foresight's also an educator. Oh, did I lose everyone? Oh.
Can you hear us? Hello.
No, I can. Yeah, signal's a little
It cut
choppy.
out for a bit.
Sorry, I was just mentioning Foresight is also an educator, so his conflict resolution is
Oh.
probably similar to Firestone's.
No, not based
No,
on what you
no.
just described. I was raised in the school of active listening and conflict resolution in that kind of way. And you don't call kids out because that actually makes them more likely to do it again because you're giving them negative attention. Anyway, we're not getting into that.
Hey, that's important stuff, but I feel you.
No, but what I was saying is some people kind of need that extra stimulation to be focused. Some people's brains are just going too fast a lot of the time, and what happens with them, I play with a lot of friends who have ADHD. What happens a lot of the time with them is if they don't have that extra stimulation, sometimes it's just a fidget spinner. Sometimes they're playing maybe like Hearthstone on their computer or something that's like doesn't take a lot of their attention. um, it helps them focus more. Not to say that you can't have a problem with someone doing that and that some people that's not good for. Like there are definitely people like me, I should not be playing Hearthstone while I'm playing D&D because that will draw away my attention. I'm just merely saying that for some people it is helpful.
So
Yeah.
to respond to that really quick, if you don't mind, I really like where you're going with that. The idea that for some people they have different needs than others I think that I'm completely behind that. Everyone is their own individual. Everyone has their own individual needs, and everybody focuses in different ways. I've always been fidgety. If I'm moving around and like I'm playing with a quarter right now and spinning it around in my hand, and I'm still like modding and talking and trying and keeping up with everything that's going on.
Ah.
It's you got a pen exactly. So, but some people are able to just sit there nicely with their hands folded and just pay attention, and that's just not everybody. Not everybody's
No, that's
like
fair. You need to tailor your ways to individuals. The individual is important. Everyone does not learn the same. And when you try to group everyone together, you're going to run into a lot of problems. I would have to agree. All right.
I mean,
Oh,
Oh,
please.
sorry.
No.
Yeah. I think
Get
it
it,
actually
girl.
all
Get
just
it.
comes down to. I mean, like you guys are both touching on this. It comes down to like communication. It's like as long as you have a baseline communication. Because for me, like I like a campaign I'm running right now. One of the guys, super sweet, terrible at paying attention, and like he always has been. I've known him for years. He really struggles with it. So I know that like when he's not actively talking, he's doing something else. But I also know that when I need him to pay attention, I can just be like, hey, babe, like heads up, and he does it. Like, and he's good, and he's been paying attention, he's been listening, but like he can't give it all the time. And so it's one of those things where like you figure this out with your players as it goes, and as long as you as the DM aren't too like I don't know strict or not willing to bend or like kind of accommodate them. It won't be a problem. Like, some people can be on their phones and still be able to play. And some people, if they're on their phones, they will tune out everything. So it depends on the person.
There's also even aside from just distractions, there's also certain people who are just here for the social experience. They're not even really here to play D&D. And so just being in a room with friends and being able to sit and do something together, even if it's something they're not like they're not going to be role playing that much. They'll be doing like their, their spells or attacks or whatever, but they'll be like on their turn, that's about it. Yeah, and there's something in their they're background characters for lack of a better word, but that's fine for them, and it works sometimes.
Yeah.
Depend it
Also,
depend it can depends.
yeah, I there's so many factors. We could talk about this
So-
specific thing all night. Yeah.
All of you actually brushed on our two next topics, which were player attention and disruptive topics. So I think we've pretty much covered up player attention there.
So now we have nothing else to talk about. Shit.
Nah,
Oh,
I got
no,
plenty
we
more.
can
I got more to say about player attention if you want. Like we can keep
I'm
going.
actually gonna jump into a question that was posed to me by Art Hard Studios, who is a D&D streamer. Weed D&D is what they do, and I actually just checked out one of their streams earlier. They all light up a fat joint right before they start. I found that hysterical. And
I would have no attention to the whole game. I would not be able to focus.
People are built different. That's all I can say. So his question was, I'm always interested in hearing how DMs prep for their games and how that process changes over the years. Personally speaking, what I thought the role of a DM has changed so drastically over the years, I always appreciate insight into other people's methods. So to kind of distill that, how do you prep for a game? How has your prep work changed over the years? I'm going to go ahead and start with Artificer.
Oh, well, prep work has gotten quite a bit easier over the years. It just
Technology.
depends. Yeah, well, that and the fact that just knowing the material and I guess being, like if you're putting enough scenarios and situations, you can kind of almost guess what your players are going to do. Especially that comes with one of the things that we were previously talking about, it getting to know your players. You know what I mean? They're knowing what kind of people they are, what kind of players they actually are. But yeah, as far as for like prep time, I would say probably when I started out, geez, man, I would like prep like all week before, and now I probably do maybe an hour, 2 hours. That's it.
Heck yeah, I can dig it. Um, and so your knowledge has made that easier, and
I guess with
any tools you've used that have made it easier.
yes, actually, like a lot of like online tools. The other thing is, and I've kind of talked in depth with a couple of people before. When starting with a new group, especially if you don't know the people of a new group, I kind of keep it 50-50, where it's half role play, half combat. Okay. Now that I adjust the more I get to know the group. So some groups are more role play heavy, some are more, there for the numbers and for the combat. I mean, the player's handbook, it's a 328-page rules lawyer for combat. So, yeah, some people are here for that, more people are here for role play. So it just depends. But I kind of have general overarching ideas of what I want the session to be. And then honestly, I have like what I call three wild cards. Okay. So it's three situations that are totally like off the cuff.
Okay.
Like we were talking about the one session where the new girl, she was just new to D&D. She wanted to go literally role play, go feeding chickens at a
Oh
farm.
yeah.
So yeah, it's
Well, I think you got to elaborate on that one now.
oh, okay, all right, jeez, all right. So she, it's just that whole. Over the years, you get that. Um, when somebody has realized that anything is pretty much possible in D&D. You just get to know that look where it's like, wow, I I really can do anything, you know. And it's usually the 12 million questions that are before that are like, yeah, can I do this? Yeah, is this possible? Yeah, well, you'd have to do a roll, that you just kind of go through the things. And she was like, I want to go feed chickens on a farm. Okay, And she wanted to go feed the chickens. That was fine. She's like, "This is fun." I said, "You
Oh, everyone there? We just having shoddy internet tonight? Lost Artificer. Oh, everyone's frozen. No. What's happening? I apologize. Apparently, we're having some technical difficulties here. Ah, sucks. Hello, hello. Are you guys
pretty much
back?
how this session."
Oh,
Oh,
okay. Can we hear each other?
yeah.
Hi.
We all lost
Yeah,
contact there for a minute.
yeah. I gathered that.
My bad, guys.
Everything went down. It's all gone.
Ah,
But yeah,
excellent. All right. So yeah, same question. Let's jump over to chaos.
Jeez. I okay, so to start out again, like when I was first starting out, I didn't do prep. I didn't understand the concept of prep. It was every single time it was a one shot. Yeah. I actually start to I wouldn't say prep more, but like I tend to like I have more information that I prep with, but it's similar amounts of time that it takes me. I've just gotten better at basically compressing information that I want to know for the session. So for instance, like I always like to whenever anything's happening, any major NPCs, I like to go over their voices in my head and then also speak them aloud in front of a mirror. And normally that's like maybe 5-10 minutes max. But I like to do that because then I can get into character with them. I tend to prep my sessions like a couple weeks in advance, so I sometimes have to like literally review what the session is about because I've forgotten like all the little details that I've written. I'm like, oh yeah, like that, okay, that thing, okay, and like I like to add in like little random small things that they can do, like oh, there's like an arm wrestling competition going on in the town, like that has absolutely nothing to do with the plot, or like someone's getting proposed to and they're going to be rejected. Like little things like that that just add flavor to the world are really fun to add in.
Make it feel like it's a living world.
Yeah, so I try to have at least a couple things, and obviously this is like if they're in a dungeon or in a cave or something, I'm not gonna maybe throw in as many of those. But like if they're in a town, yeah, I want to throw in a couple of things that like they can see, they don't have to interact with, but they can choose to interact with if they want, and they'll get an experience. And you just kind of go with it.
And
So on average, I prep about maybe 2-3 hours before the session. I know I normally like to like give myself some time to get in that headspace, do the voices, do the planning. And probably like every week, I'll spend maybe a couple of hours like also writing down, adding things to my lore, making maps. So like weekly, 6-7 hours of prep, I guess.
pretty solid. Excellent, excellent. And what tools have you used? Because clearly you've been DMing for what, 16 years now?
14, but
14?
10 to 14, that age is a little questionable. So
Uh,
we'll say 10. We'll say a solid 10.
so yeah, what kind of tools have you used to make DMing easier for you as time has gone on?
Honestly, I have a very specific style of like writing my notes that I use. I use a lot of bullet points and I use a lot of abbreviations, and that really helps me. I have a shorthand basically for D&D, and I fucking love it. Um, I actually since like COVID stuff, I've been
Some
using a
thieves
lot more
can't.
on. Yeah, a little bit of thieves can't. Yeah, it's helpful. I really like it, and I'll like write an NPC name and then like a one word that describes their characteristics, and it actually helps me really get into their character. Just because what is it like? Amos asshole. Like I'll do that, and I know exactly the character that I want to be portraying. Um, I love the online resources. This is something recently, like using Incarnate and Roll20, and like I'm learning
Yes.
Foundry now and doing stuff like that. I love that
Yes.
stuff. I also love like the random store generators, the random town generators. Like those things can make my life a lot easier if, for instance, like I need to pull a one shot out of somewhere because someone has to like play D&D or something like that. Like there's a lot of resources out there that can make my life a lot easier. I like to hand make my towns personally, but like if I'm in a rush, bam, I can pull something out in like 5 minutes. It's nice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Fun fact in the Discord, our boy Artificer has put a wealth of resources into our DM resources channel. So go ahead and join that Discord. Get in there. Come chat with us. We have a lot of fun. Foresight, How has your prep time changed over the years? What kind of tools have you used to make it easier for yourself?
Um, so I would definitely say that past Jake is an asshole. Um, he doesn't take good notes.
10 points for self-awareness. 10 points for self-awareness.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
What I do is very much in the vein of how the South Park writers write their episodes, where I'll only create stuff from like week to week. I'm not big on like long-term planning a lot of the time, which results into like a lot of really fun experiences, but also can be really stressful for me as a GM if it's like Saturday morning and I have a game in like 3 hours and I have prepped next to nothing. Um, but sometimes it is what it is, and sometimes you just gotta improv, and I enjoy that in a way because I'm really good at improving. Um, Lately I've been trying to be a little better with myself. I've been trying to, if I know that they're going to go into a town, prepare a couple NPCs that can be kind of put anywhere. Um, I've been really into like modular map assets. So the last couple encounters that I've done for the campaign I'm currently running have all been really good. Much better than well, I'm very good at building encounters, but a lot of the time they've been theater to the mind, so they're not actually on like a grid. Everyone just has to pretend that I was good. Um, but yeah, and in a weird way, the COVID stuff has helped me be a better DM because it's especially with like Roll20 and all that. I've had to create maps. I can't just grab some loose figures and some dice, put them on a grid, and just pretend like I've prepared. It's much more. I need to have that stuff ready ahead of time. Um, Anything else? One thing that I do a lot, especially for the beginnings of campaigns, is I will write a paragraph or two describing something that's like really pivotal or important, or like a key detail that I want people to know about, something that tells them about like where they are. And that helps me a lot. Like for example, this campaign that I'm about to start next week, not the one for the server, it's a different one. Um, I basically did a one paragraph write up for the two like mafia dons that are like in charge of the city. And I just did it really like in flavor, like how someone in like, as it's 1920s noir. So I did it with like a lot of like lingo, and I looked up a lot of like cool lingo and stuff like that to really like just put the players in the mood. And I presented it to them in a session 0, basically. We're like, this is the kind of world you're in, and it really put them into character and really helped them with like character building and stuff like that.
Bringing it to life. That's excellent. Excellent. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much. Um, I'm trying to think about how I can pose this to our player perspective.
Yeah. I mean, you can ask it like, I don't know, like as a player, like, do you prep? Like, do you try to remember? Like, do you take notes during session? Like, what do you do as a player to stay engaged with it?
See, this is why I have chaos here. Thank you,
Ooh,
chaos.
You're welcome. You're
good
welcome.
questions. I like it. Okay. Um, I have taken notes during campaigns before, especially if a campaign has a lot of lore,
Yeah.
and I know it's gonna come back to me. If I'm playing a character who would take notes or have a journal, I absolutely do. I have like a little leather-bound notebook that I used for the Cold North or the Russian campaign that I was talking about. Because I was my character. Think like if you played Red Dead Redemption 2, think Arthur Morgan. Like I
Ooh.
would do sketches of the landscape, and I would take little notes about things I learned along the way. Um, and then in the campaign I'm in right now, the Godbane campaign, I'm playing a necromancer who is very scholarly and is constantly trying to learn new things. So every time I find some new information that might be useful, I jot it down. I just type it on my computer, in a little like Word document I have that says like tome. But I had that like actual physical leather bound like notebook I used earlier for the other campaign. So prep work for in terms of playing, it's super important if you really want to get into your character. constantly, like, before you start your session, go through your character, what happened to them, remind yourself of their motivations, of their short-term and long-term goals is super, super important. It's crucial to figuring out what your character is going to do next. If you only think that your character wants to stop the BBEG, you're not playing it wrong, but you could be playing more. If you think about what your
Well said.
character
Well said.
wants, yeah. I try and think, what does my character want to do within the next month, and what does my character want to do within the next year? And then there's stopping the BBEG.
And we're actually changing that terminology to BBMG.
BBMG.
Yeah, big bad misunderstood guy, because evil is evil's too
Well,
harsh.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What? Why are we changing this?
Never mind.
Why?
That was something Artificer and I talked about. Jokes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Jokes,
I see.
jokes,
It's an
jokes.
inside joke
It's-
that we were all left out on. I get it. I get it.
I'm sorry, but the evil is it's kind of profiling some people, so we can't
Yeah, just because someone
you know-
has a different perspective doesn't mean they're evil.
That's right. Everybody has different views.
So,
So
I'm sorry. Is a Wizards of the Coast person talking to me about profiling and stereotyping right now?
Also evil, because like, isn't that an alignment? Like, isn't that like a
What?
We're trying to be more progressive here. That's all I'm saying.
Hot
So-
fucking
so-
kettle, dude.
So on one side is it going to be good, and the other side it's going to be misunderstood. Now is that what we're moving to?
that's
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to shift
Yeah.
into.
Pretty
We're
much.
working on.
Pretty much. What is it? Neutral misunderstood, chaotic
Neutral
misunderstood,
Oh my
lawful
God.
misunderstood.
I'm playing a chaotically misunderstood serial killer, and
Bam. We just don't
He's
That's-
doing it
that's-
for the children. All right.
That's gonna go well. That's gonna go really well.
Oh goodness. All right. Well, thank you so much for the player opinion. And may I just say that I really appreciate players who do that, because it shows an investment in the game that is beyond just like, okay, I'm here, let's roll some dice. It shows that you not only care, but you want to get into the skin of this character. You want to get into this world that we're creating together, and really breathe life into that person, because you're making them a person. And that's just that's some next level player skills right there. Take notes, folks.
Oh yeah. My favorite thing is like when like players actually remember like small NPCs that like pop back up, or like a small tidbit of information that I like
Yes.
said one time, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's like this," and I'm like, "Yes, exactly." Like, yeah, I'm glad you're paying attention. This is great.
So leading into how I handle prep work, I love it because Foundry has like a journal tab in the character sheet. Like when you click on your token, it brings up your character sheet, and there's like a journal and a biography thing. And so I'll go through after sessions, and I'll go look through my players' journals to see what they've put in. And oh man, I love it when there's just really nice detailed notes, and I'm like, ah, mwah, chef's kiss. So my prep work, I kind of went from not knowing what the fuck I was doing at all, and kind of more or less I wrote an outline of like what I wanted the whole campaign to be about. I maybe did like a page and a half outline of what I wanted the entire thing to be. And this is my first campaign, by the way, that I did. And then I just kind of hodgepodged like modules and found maps on the internet that would fit my setting, and kind of just flew by the seat of my pants. I was winging it regularly. And I just kind of had this overarching direction I kind of wanted to take things in, and my players kind of showed me where my holes were in my prep work over time. That being said, I found prep work tedious and difficult when I was using like Roll20 and just doing things over Discord. Once I got into Foundry, the system just enables such simple prep work. I had gotten to where before I got on Foundry, I was probably doing 4 hours of prep work a session, because I had seen that my winging it really I could just grow so much more and do so much better. And yes, Foundry sponsor us, please. And it was just tedious, man. I love lore building. I love kind of like, deciding what was happening in the world. But sitting there and taking the time to be like, okay, my players are going to do this, so I'm going to create this, and I'm going to have this here, and I'm going to go into it all. It was just a lot, and I didn't really have a good way to do it because I was new, I was fresh, I hadn't put a lot of time and effort into thinking about how to prep, what kind of that's because it's a skill all on its own. Um, then getting Boundary and starting to use it, it has it all just laid out before you. It's got a journal tab where you can just create a journal note and boom, there it is. So I've got organization, you've got color coded folders in there. So I've got like all my NPCs for this town in a color coded folder. I've got all the shopkeepers in a color coded folder. Not just that, I can go in there and type in, okay, here's their personality trait, here's kind of their main goal, here's their relationship to the players. And then next level with some of the mods in there, you can even add sound bites. So some of my important NPCs that I do funny voices for or just different voices for in general, I was able to sit there, press record, get in there. Oi, my name's Dazel Flint. I'm captain of Avor's hands. And when I came back to him and I was like, fuck, what was that guy's voice? Oh yeah, here, let me just click that play button. And it would play it just for me, the DM, so I could get into character a little bit more. So really all I'm trying to tell you is I'm a lazy bastard who cheats and uses technology to do all the hard work for him. Sums it about up.
No,
Just an
that's
advanced
called.
form of it's just an advanced form of paper and pen, honestly.
Yeah, yeah.
You guys are nice.
Well, it's also one of those things where like when you've done it the hard way and you find an easier way, I don't care how lazy it makes me look.
That's
Like
so
if
nice.
if it takes less time for me, I'm gonna do that. Like yes.
I was discrediting myself. Honestly, it's made me a more efficient DM and it's allowed me to take more time focusing on the things that I find important, building a really engaging story, having a lot of depth and connection with my players, plot lines, and NPCs. And it took a lot of the bookkeeping out of it for me, and it allowed me to focus on just delivering a really, I won't say immaculate because that might be a stretch, but a really well crafted story. But yeah, so now I went from like 4 to 6 hours a session to I'll put like 6 to 8 hours in for an arc, kind of outlining it and putting in the major NPCs and maybe some of the major locations and stuff, and then maybe like an hour or two a week before the session, just kind of finagling and making sure everything's up to date. And an hour or two might be stretching it, maybe like 30 minutes to 45 minutes before the session. I'm able to get everything up to date pretty simply. Um, yeah, and that about covers it for me.
Cool.
Right.
That goes with that whole work smarter, not harder.
Yeah,
for sure.
exactly.
I try my best. You know, smarts have always been a stretch for me. Grandma always said I had a nice smile, though. Let's see. All right, on to our next topic. Anyone in the chat got anything for us? You guys want to throw anything at us? We are more than welcome to take
Yeah.
questions now.
Something that I think would be just something to throw out to chat is what exactly is a session zero? Because I've heard a lot of things be referred to as a session zero, different definitions of it. So I'd love to hear from all of you experienced DMs. What exactly is a session zero? What do you establish in a session zero?
Yeah, go ahead, Foresight. Take it
Yeah.
away.
I think it really depends on the group, if that makes sense, because I think different groups. I think it's a place for expectation settings is what it's really about. More than even like character building or anything like that. You're trying to set what are we all trying to get out of this? What do we not want to see at our table? How do we kind of communicate on like a person to person level type of thing? Um, and then yes, character building and world building and all that. um so I think it just different groups, it just depends. Like I'll have some groups that are a little less talkative, a little less like either used to role playing or just less talkative people in general. And so that for that it's more of a trying to get people to like get in the rhythm of just talking to each other. Other groups, I have extremely energetic people, so for them, it's to try to like get them to focus and to get them to understand what exactly we're doing, so that they don't think that this is just lol what the fuck, let's do whatever. It's more like, we're here to create a story, stuff like that. And so, yeah, and then just I think it's also just important to have to. I'm working on this last one a little bit, but safety guidelines for like when things come up in sessions that people are not comfortable with. Um, I wish we were more. I wish it wasn't over as Discord as much. But there's some very interesting systems that I've been like learning up about for RPGs and stuff. Um, the one that I really like is green, yellow, red light, where every player at the table has, a green card, a yellow card, a red card, that is just like in front of them essentially, and whatever they're currently feeling, that's what they have. If everyone's green, we're all good. If someone's yellow, maybe we need to slow it down a little bit. Maybe we need to like fast forward a scene a little bit, stuff like that. And then red is obviously like, all right, we need to move on. We need to go somewhere else, stuff like that.
It's funny that you mentioned that. Firestone actually brought that up in our last DM discussion, that he had a card with a small black dot on it, and the black dot was flipped over. And as soon as something that a player finds uncomfortable comes up, they just pull up the black dot, and you just move on right away.
Yeah.
I think that's a fantastic. It's like a D&D safe word. It's a fantastic system. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh, that was pretty much all I had to say. Didn't really have much else to add.
Excellent. Artificer,
Yo,
what's a session 0?
Foresight pretty much covered everything. It's a lot of Q&A, and like it was said, it really depends upon the group. If you have a group of experienced players, a lot of session 0 is just going over like basic rules. Okay, in my game, this is allowed. This homebrew's here. This is here. This is here. Yeah, this is how we're gonna do stats. Now, if it's a brand new game of new players, that's a little bit more depth. That's a lot of questions. So, yeah, it really does depend upon the group. But like I said, well, you have my 14 pages.
Yeah, I have your manifesto on how to
You have
run
my
a session 0.
Got it. That doesn't even include all the homebrew stuff. That's not my house rules. That's just the session 0 stuff.
It's the basics. Excellent. Chaos, anything to add?
Yeah, I agree with both of them. I'll reiterate it again. It depends on the players. If you have new players, like
Yeah.
I had a player today who wanted to join the campaign I'm running, and basically I spent an hour and a half with him going over character creation and like explaining everything about character creation, and like I walked him through it step by step. If I have experienced players, I'm assuming you guys can create your characters on your own, and I'm assuming that we're going to go over like expectations, guidelines more focused, and like that's going to be more of what we're talking about in session 0 than going over like what's ability modifiers.
Yeah, of course. Getting everyone up to speed.
Yeah.
Yeah. My question would be to Robo. What do you expect out of a session 0?
It's backwards.
Ooh, hot money.
What I expect. I mean,
What
Yeah,
a DM expects and what a player expects, two different things. That's why you have a different perspective.
in my mind, first session's when you start playing, when you finally get to move forward, like move into it. So in a session 0, I usually expect character creation, learning about the world, and then if you have enough time, maybe doing a little background work for the characters, like getting to role play a little bit of your background and moving up to the point where the campaign actually starts. In my mind, like in the first session is when it's like this is the starting moment of the story, and in the session 0, it's everything that leads up to that you're supposed to learn.
Good. Yeah, I can dig it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think you guys all summed it up really beautifully. Just setting those expectations, setting those comfort zones, so people kind of know what they're getting into. Yeah, if they're newer, definitely doing some character creation. If not, do that on your time. I'll show you what the setting is, what the tone is, and then you kind of take it away from there. But yeah, I don't really think I need to add much more than that. You guys were all pretty concise.
And I would also say that like don't be like, if you want to be a GM, don't be afraid of having more than one session zero. If you just feel like you need more time to get people acclimated to the game for whatever reason. I know with the one that we're planning to run on the server, we had a whole session just for kind of logistics of like things that were kind of mechanical in nature.
Yeah.
And then a one before that that was more about like the actual like what we want to play.
Yeah.
And they were like two different things. And like if we try to do that all in one night, people can get a little overloaded. I feel like they can little tune out a little bit.
I think we've had maybe about 3 or 4 session zeros for our community campaign
Yeah.
at this point. There's nothing wrong with taking your time. Think of this as like a baby. You guys are kind of like, got to care for it. You got to make sure
Yeah.
everything's set very nicely. Got to set up its little bassinet and then its blanket, and make sure it's got a full tummy.
Yeah. And I
don't-
think oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so don't rush through it and don't feel pressured to take as much time as you and your players need.
Yeah. And I think it was Satine Phoenix. I was watching her on a webcast. She talked about how she tries to have a like pseudo session zero before every session if she can, before and or after. Just to check in with players, see how they're doing, how are you feeling today, if like because some people are having bad days and maybe they just don't want to role play as much, and so that's perfectly fine too. So it's good to just be keyed in on like that information a lot of the time.
That's a really valuable one. I've never called it a session zero, but yeah, every time we start a game, I sit there for about 20 30 minutes with my players, just kind of like, hey man, how's everyone doing? What'd you do today? How you feeling? What are you guys thinking about the story? Like, what's your mood? That's really important. I never thought of calling it a mini session zero, but it kind of is.
Yeah, it's the same general like idea in a
Yeah,
way.
yeah, just checking in on
Yeah.
everybody. Gotta care for your players and your DM. It's all part of that social contract.
Yeah, yeah, and then that's a pre. A lot of us call that a pre-session now.
Yeah, pre-session. Good way
Yeah.
to say it.
And and sometimes that's, you know, and I hate to say it, a lot of like newer players feel like once you start like role playing in a group, there's like that pressure that you need to role play every single time that we play. And usually during that pre-session, that could be that time of, you once you get, like I said, once you get to know your players, you can kind of be like, hey man, you doing okay? You're not, if you're not feeling it, you can leave. That's, it's totally understandable. I mean, there's no pressure for you to play. And and then if like, maybe, and that's that whole, like, if one of them speaks up, maybe another one will be like, yeah, I'm not really feeling it. That's fine. We can just cancel. That's fine. There's no
Yeah,
big
yeah.
deal.
100%. I have definitely canceled a session before because one of my players was just, man, I'm not feeling it today. But you guys go ahead and play, and I was like, no, 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 no. This is for all of us, and we're all more than willing to like wait to continue this on. And I think we went and freaking ran like a little mini one shot, something else random, Speak up. Don't be afraid to ruin everyone's time, because I know there's some of that guilt that gets involved. Your other players and your DM, they probably care about you and how you're feeling towards this a little more than you think, and you're not going to ruin anyone's good time. If they're dying to play D&D, they can still play D&D, and take care of yourself. Self-care is important.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. It's like a DM's role is kind of like basically being a middleman, but to get everyone to communicate to each other. And like once you have that,
100%.
once you have basically being able to pull those things out, it's a lot smoother. It's great.
100%. 100%. All right. Let's see. Let's move on to the next one. I've got a few. This one's pretty standard, but I mean also definitely something to discuss in session zero. Disruptive topics. Now, I'm a bartender, and I got taught a long time ago, when you're working, you don't talk about religion, politics, or sex. Um, are these things that you can talk about at your table? What about sports? Other disruptive things that might start a side conversation, and this all ties into player attention and whatnot. But how do you, as a DM, mitigate these things, or at least set some standards so that if it does arise, which is very likely, everyone's on the same page with how to handle it and how to move forward? Chaos, why don't you start us off?
I normally approach things by unless you approach me that you can't handle it, I'm gonna let you do it. I when I'm doing my session 0, when I'm first setting up a campaign, I make it very clear to my players, hey, so like, if you guys want to have side conversations like before the session, after the session, even like a little chit chat during, like I don't really have a big issue with that. If it takes up some time in the session, I'm gonna tell you guys to stop, and it's not because I'm upset, but because like I want to keep progression going. And while you and your friend or you and someone may be really interested in talking about the socioeconomical perspective of the working class, that's not the time right now. Like moving on later. I had a couple sessions ago, I had someone who was talking about the Asian hate crime rise that's been going on in the U.S., which like fascinating topic, super cool to talk about. They talked about it for a couple minutes. I was like, all right, we're gonna like, yes, if you want to talk about this after the session, I'm down to talk. I love talking about politics. Not right now. Like we got to keep going. We got to be like, we're here for a thing. I find that as long as you're respectful, and you're basically able to be like, hey, I value your opinion. But again, it's that social construct, guys. That you just, as long as everyone's understanding that you're not trying to silence them or disagree with them, but rather just trying to say, hey, like we're all here to do this. This isn't the time for whatever you're trying to do.
Yeah, we've dedicated our time. All of us here have dedicated our
Yeah.
times. Save that for later. Absolutely.
Yep.
Foresight.
I guess I have a little bit of mixed feelings about this, just because it kind of goes back to what because I've played a lot of D&D, where the D&D was definitely the thing we were doing, but it wasn't the reason we were there necessarily. Like we were there to socialize and there to just be together. It depends, because I've definitely had campaigns where that's not the case, where we're definitely the D&D is the primary thing here. That's what we all signed up for. But I think it really just depends. I definitely agree with the idea of moving stuff along when it needs to, we need to move on. Is if it's like taking away from game time, especially. But I think it really just depends. Again, I think it comes back to like what your group's about. What's the what are we here for? If we're here to like because some people want to play 2 hours of D&D every week and that's all the time they get to do D&D, and I see that that's people are getting like bored, or they like my other players want to move it along, then yeah, I'm gonna move it along for the sake of the players. If everyone is just enjoying a nice conversation, I'm not gonna, as I said, I'm a very improv heavy GM who doesn't do a lot of very good prep work. So if you can stall a little bit, I'm not gonna be against it.
Yes, buy me
Um,
time. Buy me time.
and I've also done things like where I had like 5 or 6 hour long sessions. I've had breaks in the middle of my sessions. I ran a campaign. This was over COVID, but it's ended since then. Um, where we would play 5 hours, but there would always be a 30-minute-ish break in the middle of it. And so that would be a good time for people to like talk about other stuff. Often they would still talk about the session, what they want to do next. But if obviously topics went to other stuff, then that's the perfect place for it. Often I would be making myself lunch, so I wouldn't even be there for half the conversation.
There you go. There you go. Excellent. I appreciate your perspective. Thank you. Artificer.
I mean, it's one of the things that I go over. If it gets out of hand, I usually have a discussion after session. But if it becomes more to the forefront of being discussed over, it's not so bad in person, but really the problem with it is really like a lot of online. Like if they get talking back and forth and somebody's in the middle of doing, their turn or something, that it's really bothersome that way. However, that's why they have the chat window. You can talk and roll through that and not really bother anybody. But even then, that can get distracting too, as well. So that's something I kind of go over. I try and you can kind of keep it to a minimum. A couple of times, like I had a couple of players that would always discuss like the college football game before, right? So I just told them, I was like, you guys want to do that? I said, just come like 30 minutes before we start and talk. I mean,
Yeah.
because it's a little disruptive in the game.
And
And they would come like they'd get there usually before I would to be at the table. So
yeah, and that's a great compromise.
Yeah.
Coming with solutions. All right, Robo. Did I hit chaos? I got chaos. I got
did.
foresight. I got artificer. Robo, how about yourself?
I mean, in terms of like because we're talking about topics that don't need to be talked about, right? Or might not,
Just
maybe
something that
shouldn't be
could be
brought up.
considered disruptive. Yeah.
Yeah, a disruptive topic. It's tough because I know plenty of people, myself included, who have written a campaign that has some intense topics in it. That's really geared towards like a brutal realism and
Hey.
yeah, but it's meant to like shock the player. It's supposed to evoke a reaction. It's supposed to um, show just how horrifying this thing is, this entity or this organization or this, whatever. It's supposed to be provocative and it's not supposed to be pleasant to experience. And that can be hard to put in as something you definitely have to like clear with. I learned that the hard way. Something you have to clear with all of your players before you start, because it could not be for everybody. If you have a campaign that has really strong focus on, say, religion, it could be really difficult for a player who's either very against religion or very religious themselves to participate if it maybe shows a religion that's similar to an existing one in a bad light, or they feel like it's an attack on their own beliefs, or maybe it feels like it's glorifying a certain religion and it makes somebody who doesn't believe in that very uncomfortable. I mean, politics is also something I guess you could run into problems with in Dungeons and Dragons, but I feel like it's a little that would take some actual effort. You'd be trying to make like a political commentary of a campaign. Um and I mean that has its place. There's campaigns of political intrigue, and you could totally have a running political commentary in it, but that's also something you would need to clear with your players first. And it it really with something like that, if it's a constant theme throughout the campaign, it goes beyond the dot system,
Yeah.
the safe D&D safe word system, because you could have a safe word all you want, but if part of the integral themes of the campaign is about this subject or about this shocking material or about one of these taboo subjects that you're not supposed to bring up in bartending, it
yeah.
could be it could make it unplayable
So
for all of the players.
So do you think that those kinds of topics being centralized in a campaign can lead to disruptive conversation outside of the campaign?
I feel like it would I think it would be probably more accurate to have something like that uh cause a disruptive mindset in one of the players, where one of the players is now uh in is in a bad place or thinks of some of the other players differently based on their actions and choices in it.
And might want to discuss real world topics because of that.
And that could be a problem. There's nothing wrong with talking about real world topics to other people and having a healthy debate or a conversation about it. But as soon as it moves from hey, here's a healthy discussion on our different beliefs and ideas and ideologies, to it feels like I'm being targeted now because I think differently about this than somebody else, and it feels like we're not having a discussion about our differences, and instead it's, hey, here's why you shouldn't think that way. And it's just an attack on on an individual. It can get kind of toxic, and I think
Heard.
there's not really a place for that in a game.
And that's when it
You
can
know,
become disruptive. Heard.
because at the end of the day, it's a collaborative storytelling, but it's also a game.
Yeah.
You're playing to have fun.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. All right. I could dig it. I've been very fortunate once again to not really have to deal with this. Color me lucky. I've got some really courteous and awesome players, and so we might have joked around for a moment or two, and then immediately just kind of gotten back on track after I was like, all right, guys, let's jump back on it. To be completely honest, I don't have a whole lot of experience having to mitigate this. I tend to have kind of that rule, but my players have become really close friends of mine. So if we screw around a little bit about politics or sex or religion here or there, it's like he was saying, it's usually just kind of healthy, respectful, and very brief, because we're all here to play the game, which Chaos was saying. Oh, morning, Boop, good to see you. All right, excellent. I think we had a poll, and we should probably run over some of those topics since that seems to be what
Perfect.
people are voting on.
Do you want the first one?
Let's see. Yes.
All right. The first one that got a vote for was how to improve backstory building in a session 0.
Ooh, that's exciting. So I'm gonna actually steal the mic on this one, guys, and go first. All right. In my first campaign, I dealt with some serious character conflict, not player conflict, but character conflict, and I was a brand spanking new DM. Chaos, our mutual friend there, Diego, he decided to play a pacifist paladin.
Yeah, he's told me about this.
And that pacifist paladin came into conflict with two of my other characters constantly, and actually all three of my other characters constantly. And as a DM, at first, my first revolt, I was like, oh, this isn't what I wanted to happen. I don't want my players to butt heads over these things. And I'm like 5 sessions into DMing, and I have no basis on how to handle this whatsoever. And afterwards, I was like, I kind of railroaded you, and Diego, I had only played with him for 1 session. That was his first session, and so I was like, I kind of railroaded you there. I'm sorry, but I didn't know how to handle that. And we had a really deep dive into like, hey, if your players are having fun, like let them do that, It ended up leading into some really difficult progression in the story later on, where they were constantly having to like butt heads and choke up, and there wasn't cohesion, and the party would often just kind of like fall apart. So I preface this, what I'm about to say, with this because I now make sure that in my session 0, or at least in my first session after characters are created, we talk about bonds. We talk about building that backstory and how are you guys connected? How are your goals aligned? How are you guys going to move forward as a team? A lot of that can be put up to the DM in the first session. Your characters give you a little taste, because every character wants to write a 12-page. Not every player, I'm sorry. Most players want to write a 12-page character backstory. Okay, I think if you've thought about your character enough, you've gone deep, right? And so all of those backstories can really help to give you clues on how to tie them together. That can be challenging. You have to be a very skillful DM to be able to take a bunch of abstract stories and be like, all right, let me centralize these around the story I want to tell with them and try to like tie them up into this nice bow so that these players work together. So an easier method I would recommend, and Firestone DM did this with us in our like session 0 kind of thing. How are you guys bonded? What brings you together? Why are you all here with this same clear goal? You don't all have to like each other, but you all have to be able to be willing to work as a team. You can even have an evil character, but he needs to have his goals aligned so that we can play a game where the party's not just going to fall apart. It's not just going to implode. It's not going to hamper the fun, and it's not going to hamper the storytelling that we're all trying to do at the end of the day. So my advice is sit down with your players. If this is a major concern of yours, or if you're not a super skillful DM who can just tie it all together with your storytelling, sit down with your players in that session 0 and have the conversation. Okay, how are your characters bonded? Why are their goals aligned? And I think you'll find it's much easier. It's much more synergistic because teamwork makes the dream work, y'all. Work with your players. They're going to be more than willing to try to bond them. And if you have a player who isn't, maybe a red flag. Maybe ask them why they're there and what kind of game they want to play. And yeah, I think that's about it for me. Let me pass the baton over. Foresight, why don't you hit us?
I definitely agree with your last little sentiment there. I agree with pretty much all of what you said for the most part. But that last little sentiment that sometimes if it might be a little bit of a red flag if a player's pushing back on not wanting to be a cohesive part of the group. And I think and it's not always out of a place of maliciousness either. It might
Absolutely.
be it might be personality. It might just be what they want to do for their character.
They
Like,
might be
it's
an
just-
edgelord, and that's okay.
they might be an edgelord. I've had more than my share of edgelords.
Try not to cut yourself on the edge.
I personally cannot play an edgelord character. It's just not me. Um, um, but yeah, that's just how it's just how they envision themselves seeing fun and like sometimes people don't actually know what they want to have what they need to have fun. Like they're either they're new players or maybe they just don't
You don't
like
know
quite.
what you like.
Like sometimes they really don't. Like
No,
people
I
think they want
agree. I
something, but
agree.
they really don't.
Well,
And
it's-
like it's like it goes along with like people who ask for like these really like broken ass
yes,
weapons and like
yes,
character creations. Like, do you really want that? Like, do you understand what that's gonna do for you? Like, it's not gonna make this fun. You think it's gonna be fun, but it's not fun.
yeah.
Like,
It's
no
funny
one's gonna have
because
fun with that.
that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, players don't know what they want. You give them
No.
all the most OP weapons and abilities, they're gonna be like, "Yeah, give me that," and then it's like,
Yeah,
"Ah,
no.
I'm
No,
just walking through
what players
everything."
want is nice steady progression with like good storylines and like, interesting NPC. That's what players want. And if if you're gonna get there, you gotta have like halfway decent backstories that aren't just like I'm an edge lord.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything else on that, Foresight?
What was the original topic? Because I feel like we've
No,
strayed slight.
you nailed it. You nailed it. It's how to build backstories.
Gotcha. Definitely agree with the interlinking backstories thing. That was something that's something I think some people have a little bit of a hard time with, but I think that goes along with setting a setting, setting a world for them to be in. You describe the setting first, then you say, okay, now that I've described that setting, where do you see yourself in this? Where might you have met some of these other people? And I also think that having not like even a session, but like a almost like pulled the scope back one layer kind of encounter where you have something that is like an encounter, like that if like something you could describe as an encounter, but you don't actually have that encounter.
Ooh.
You don't like roll initiative or any of that stuff. You don't roll skill checks. You kind of just more narrate what happens, and you have the players jump in with their own narration so that they kind of get a flavor for how their characters would like exist in this world. I think starting with something like that, you can do that during session 0 too, to give them kind of like time to mull it over before the actual session. Can also be very helpful.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Chaos.
Yo.
Lay it on me, baby.
Yeah. Oh, so actually, ironically enough, our mutual friend, yet again. So I'm doing a campaign with Diego, and then like our other buds from college. And other than Diego and I, no one's played D&D before, really. So it's like it's two experienced players and then four complete novices. And so like when we were starting like preparing for session zero, Diego and I were talking regularly, and like we were going over backstories, making a homebrew mechanic for him, like all this stuff. And I was like trying to explain that making a backstory for your character gives a lot more enjoyment to playing D&D. Like it is a major part of it. And a couple of them were like, before the session zero, were actually talking to me and be like, hey, like this is my idea, like, yeah, what do you think? And like I was going with it. But there was one guy who just did not make a backstory at all, and like would not, and I was kind of like, look, like it's up to you, right? I can't force you to do anything. But here's the thing. I'm going to ask you questions as NPCs, and you're not going to be able to answer them. Like, I'm going to have someone ask you where you're from, and you're not going to know. Like, you're not going to be able to tell me that basic information, and you will not get the same roleplay experience as other people. And for the first couple of sessions, he's like, oh, no, that's fine. And then he started to experience it, and he's like, well, I want to have a backstory. I'm like, yeah, like, okay, like, let's make this backstory. And of course, this guy is playing tiefling warlock, so he's the edgiest of edgelords, and it's really fucking
Beautiful.
They
Um,
always are. They always are.
Struck with sudden amnesia. Was it-
Or their
no,
kitsunes.
no, he was born on the wrong side of town, and his father was a bad thief. Trust me, it's fucking painful.
Hey, sometimes the classics are where it's at.
Yeah.
I'll shut up now. I'll shut up now.
No, and so basically, like a big actually struggle for me in this campaign was interlocking all of these very unique different characters into this backstory. Like I have a dementia Don Quixote paladin type character.
Diego.
I have a yeah, Diego. I have because of course he's playing a paladin. I have a very devout cleric of this dwarven god of like smithing and like perfection, which he's really good at it. Actually, I'm
Neat.
impressed with him. I have a pacifist wood elf who cannot kill anything whatsoever. I have a literal necrophiliac, like a guy who literally is obsessed with dead bodies, and then I have an edgelord warlock, and none of them are cohesive at all. And so I had to go into this thing where I was like, okay, like I'm gonna give you guys all your own unique motivations that tie you together with them, but like you all have your own agendas, and you're all trying to like you guys are working together, but you're not really allies. And like that's like just kind of what I've had to do, because when you're dealing with new players, a lot of time like explaining bonds, and especially when they're trying, like a lot of them are coming from that backstory of like playing typical RPGs where like they're the main character, like they want to win,
Yeah.
they want to win the game or whatever. I'm like, that's, and like explaining that is difficult. It's like telling them like, hey, like it's not about winning, it's about the experience, it's about the enjoyment, it's about losing sometimes. Like that's
Yeah.
fun. Like
Yeah.
experiencing a character death is incredibly painful, but also one of the best experiences in the game. Like you can't really beat it. So it's been really interesting. I think if you can create character bonds, it's fantastic, but sometimes you're gonna have players that just like are want to play a very different type of character, and it's up to you as the DM as to whether or not you want to deal with that or not. I'm dealing with it now, and it's a blast. It's been a pain in the ass to figure it out, but now that I've kind of got it, I love it. It's really fun.
Yeah. I will say, to speak on that, it's true. You don't have to say yes to a
Yeah.
player
Yeah,
who
for
wants to do
sure.
that. You tell them no. And
Yeah.
if you're not comfortable doing it, because what Chaos is talking about is a skill that is developed. It is a storytelling skill that is developed, because you have to figure out how to tie all of these random pieces together. So be firm in that session zero. If you don't feel comfortable doing that yet and you need to practice, take your time. Let them know, hey, look, it would make it a lot more fun for me, and I think it'll probably be a lot more fun for all of you if we have some bonds outlined ahead of time.
Yep. I mean, and I think it's also a thing where it's like I went over their backstories, and one of the characters wanted to be like, you know, the brother of the Dwarven King, and I was just like, look, unless you can give me a really compelling backstory as to why you're this person, like all of this stuff, no, like I'm not gonna
Yeah.
let you do that
Do
because
the
like
do
that
the homework.
yeah, no, literally. And I was like, hey, I have all of this. Like, you want to be part of the Karak clan? All right, cool. Here's all the backstory I have from the Karak clan. Tie something into that. And he was just like, well, I just want to. I'm like, no. If you want something that gives you this high stats, it's going to
Yeah.
give you a serious edge in this world.
Yeah.
You need to show me that you can engage in this world.
Yeah.
100%.
So you have to challenge your players. You have to like if they're doing something like I'm never going to say no, but they need to prove it to me. They need to
How?
show me that they can reach that level that I need for them to be able to do something.
What is it? As DMs, our go-to. Yes, but
Yeah.
Yes, but yeah,
um,
that's a good one.
excellent. Artificer.
I
The-
have a form that you fill out.
Oh shit, that's next level. Okay. Lay it on us, man. What do you outline in that form? God.
Oh, Jesus
Woo!
Christ.
My
You should know
man.
better than that.
I
All right,
should.
so
With your 14-page manifesto, you would have figured that wouldn't surprise me.
I mean, come
Artificer's
on.
like, here's this 15-page contract. I need you to fill this out before we can start playing.
I do
Hey,
require your
that-
signature in blood, please. He is the warlock patron of our server, so that wouldn't surprise me either.
Like honestly, I do have like a blank infernal demonic contract that if somebody makes a pact in game, I do fill it out and they do sign it.
Please send that to me.
Fantastic.
But no, like for like character backstory, so it's like a series of questions that I have on there, and you know, when somebody is struggling and trying to come up with a backstory, you know, you can have like overload where your brain just goes, and then a lot of people just go to tropes like edgelord or my parents are dead and I've been an orphan, and yeah, so they take that straight avenue, okay? But like simple questions like on the form that I have is like, you know, like who are your parents? They don't necessarily need to be dead. What are their names? What do they do? Um, the other ones is like, what do you know about the world? You know, um, why did you leave to become an adventurer, or why did you leave your family? Um, do you have an idea what kind of class you want to be? I mean, it's just general backstory. It goes over that. Um, Another one of the questions: what do you love and hate, or what do you fear? What do you respect? Value in others, the world, or life? You know, kind of a bonds question. So yeah, there's those different separate questions on that form. Um, and then kind of at the bottom, after they've kind of filled those out, I say review what you wrote, and then write about what happened before, quote unquote, the campaign started. And then
Beautiful.
with those
I like
little
that.
pieces of information from above, you're like, oh yeah, because you answered all the questions for your backstory, you can just put them together now. You already answered them all.
100%. That is next level, man.
It's not my first rodeo.
Yeah, no kidding. It's funny in my last this campaign I'm currently running in my main one. I'm starting everyone off as like 7-year-olds, and so all I told them was I said, "Give me a personality trait, give me a quirk, and tell me what your parents do." But that was me putting a lot of building their character on both of us and my storytelling. So, I don't necessarily recommend it. Yours is really concise, and that is fantastic. Robo, my man,
Yes. It's happening.
building backstory as a
What's
player.
happening?
Oof. Building backstory as a player, it's such a involved process. You really have to visualize what you're going for. If you don't have a goal when you're creating your character in any way, shape, or form, and you're just like, well, I guess I'll make a dude who does something, or make a monster person. I don't know. Like you're not gonna go where you want to go. You're not gonna get to a place where you have something that you value and appreciate. Building your backstory is how you become who you become. I actually have played a campaign where I got to be a prince, which is kind of like being the king's brother. Like I was royalty, and I had to come up with a really compelling reason as to why my character was the prince, and then how I was able to do the things that I could do as a prince. I mean, I had access to the wealth of a kingdom. Like, why couldn't I just speed run through the campaign?
like easy. And I had to come up with, oh well, the prince is really self-sufficient and is trying to prove something to his father that he doesn't need to rely on the wealth of the kingdom to go out and
Nice.
accomplish his quest, and things like that. And I had to keep going to really create this Prince Hodvar, and it ended up being one of my favorite characters because it gained this really detailed backstory that was filled with things that I worked on with the DM to flesh that character out and make it into not just a sheet of paper but into a living, breathing figure. That, again, I keep talking about how role play is so important in playing Dungeons and Dragons. If it's all combat, it can get stale. But if you mix in just that perfect amount of like quality role play where you dive into that character, it brings it into a whole nother level of experience.
That's excellent, and I think it makes it that much more rewarding to play.
Exactly.
All right, excellent. All right, we're gonna hit our last. Oh no, gosh, that was the first topic from the poll. Goodness, goodness. All right. Our next topic is going to be setting the tone of the game. This is something that's very, very important, and I want you all to know that setting the tone is something that you do in every single session.
Yep.
And I'm gonna pass the mic off. Artificer, why don't you start us off this time, please?
Well, let's see. Boy, setting the tone. I guess it really depends upon what session you are wanting to run. The not every dungeon master is different the way they set their tone for their game. So like when I get there, 30, 40 minutes before a session whenever we play in person. Okay. But if we're doing it live, like I'll hop into like the stream chat and start playing. I'll start playing like the background music beforehand, and a lot of times like the characters will like come in and be like, ah, crap, I know what kind of game we're having today. Just for the playlist that I have going, they'll be like, I know what this session's going for. But yeah, kind of like setting the mood before. Like if we're playing in session, like the lighting and everything, the tone. Um, they'll know if I have. It's. I guess it's a certain presence. I guess you should have for your game, and as far as you're setting your tone. Plus, it also depends upon how you left your last session as well. Um, did you prepare for the tone of your next game, or did you just kind of like drop it off because you were on your 6th hour of playing? You know. So yeah, I mean, I kind of leave my session to build into the next one. So like my session for one of the campaigns I'm running now, they just ended, and as they like came out of their magnificent mansion, a spectral form from one of their dead mates from when they were 5th level, and they are now 16th. And a lot of them were like, "Oh shit, are you kidding me? What the?" And I was like, and that's where we're gonna end. And they're like, "You son of a," So yeah,
Mwah.
Nice.
yeah,
Pacing. That's beautiful pacing right there.
yeah. Well, and it bends into the next session, and I can't tell you like the number of messages they were like, "What happened? Or do they look the same?" I'm like, you could save all these questions and ask me when we play next time.
I love it. I love it.
So,
All right.
so yeah, like setting your tone, setting your pacing. Yeah, a lot of that. It depends per DM, I guess. Everybody's got a different style. If we were all the same, it'd be pretty fucking boring.
Agreed. Agreed. Excellent. All right. Chaos.
Um, I like to do like a slow roll of tone. So I whenever I'm normally introducing the world, I try to actually make it very neutral in the world. Like I try to be very like, here is the world, here are these people, like, they do these things, not saying whether or not they're good or bad, just like this is what they're known for. Like this is the world that you're living in. And then I kind of like I like the characters to introduce themselves, and then I like to slowly introduce what I'm at least gonna be letting happen in the world. Like whether what the characters do is gonna be up to them, but like the world's gonna continue with or without them. That's always my mantra.
Yeah.
So I a lot of times, and I also have serious preference to like darker mystery stories. Like they don't know who the bad guy is, and like realistically, it's a whole conspiracy or some bullshit like that. I love stuff like that, so I'm a big sucker for those type of things. So I always like to kind of like have quick reminders or like little hints about things that like later on, if they remember those things, they'll have an aha moment. I always love having those aha moments. Same with pacing though. I always, whenever I'm having a session, I try to make sure there's like a couple of points in the session that are good stopping points. Because you never know how long characters are going to do certain things for. Like I've had characters literally stay in a tavern for like 3 hours, role play drinking, and like have a drinking competition, and that's what they wanted to do. And like, okay, the atmosphere that day was super jovial, and I'm like, yeah, okay, sounds good to me. Like that's what we're doing today. And then at the end, like, just adding in a little something of like, okay, like, and as you go to bed, like there was you hear a small creak, or like you hear a small whisper in the background of this word that you remember, or something like that, just reminding them, hey, you had a good time, but there's this overfloating, overarching idea. So I'm always big on just like the quick, subtle reminders that kind of keep the players in somewhat of a suspense. That's at least what I like to do.
That was really well said, man. Yeah, that maintaining tone and pacing is really important. Talmaru, thank you so much for jumping in and throwing a question. We will definitely answer that before we get off tonight. All right, Foresight, your turn.
Hmm.
How do you set a tone? How do you maintain the tone?
Yeah, I think
What is the
that's
tone?
What? Bong.
um what I would say for that. This goes a little back to what I was talking about the having a paragraph or two, or like something that feels like it exists in the world, if that makes sense. Something that either someone would say or that someone wrote down, that really, it doesn't feel like you are just a person describing it, but that someone in the world took their time to tell you about this thing. I think that can go a long way to getting people immersed, especially when you're first starting out, and also at points where either you need their interest to come back a little bit, um, or or you just need extra focus, I would say.
Uh,
Um,
if I may, kind of like just this made me think of like the books in Skyrim that you would find laying around.
yeah, it's similar to that. Um, one idea that I was doing occasionally and that I wanted to start doing more frequently before COVID started, um, was having stuff in real life that also existed in the game world. Um, so for example, I had my players going through this like kind of magical laboratory at one point, and I actually I didn't super extensive create it, but I created some pages that were basically like scientific notes that were in the world. Obviously, in this place they were in, there was like piles and piles of pages, everywhere. What I made was the rolling high enough on your investigation check to find stuff. Um, and so little stuff like that was really cool. One thing I definitely want to do is having like a prop for every session. If we once we go back to like out of COVID times,
I
and we
like
go to
that.
actually, and I think that would go a long way to immersing people in the world. Another thing I've played with a little bit, um, I was gonna run a campaign where the currency of the world was also the way people did magic, and I was gonna make it a
Ooh,
physical thing, and then what I was gonna do is make it so it was candy, and so in order to activate the magic, they had to eat the candy.
interesting.
And so there was a very like also my educational brain understands that I'm so Pavloving them to enjoy Magic by doing or enjoying D&D by doing that. And I may be a little evil, so
Evil.
But we don't. Sorry, misunderstood.
Yeah, misunderstood genius. That's what you are.
Misunderstood.
I
And so
love it.
I think things like that where you can bring the game world out into the real world just for like a very small moment can really bring people into it.
That's fantastic. Um, oh man, I love all of your perspectives. It's so good. Before I jump over to the player perspective, I think I'm gonna roll mine off really quick. I sometimes struggle to maintain tone because Talmaru, thank you so much for the follow. I I like to let my players do what the hell they want, and sometimes they like to do really silly stuff. And what up? Thank you so much. Um, Swiggy. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I
Sir Wingy.
Sir Wingy. I I struggle sometimes because I'm like, oh, dude, my player's doing something really hilarious, but I need to have proper repercussions to what they're doing. For instance, I had a player who they just kind of busted into like a serious strategy meeting that was going on, and they're like 17-year-old kids coming into the main guard strategy meeting, and they just started like talking trash to these big shots, right? And at the moment, it was hilarious, so I kind of rolled with it. Later on, I was like, oh man, I really kind of lost some of the feel of, hey, these are just kids in this world trying to do their best. They're not big shots. They're not heroes. They're not people of affluence or influence. Why did they get to come in here and shit talk this noble? Well, I set it up so the next time they ran into that noble, he was pissed off. There were repercussions to that. They suffered in some way. And that was me kind of like scrambling to maintain tone when I had dropped the ball. So it can become this balancing act. But even if you lose it for a moment, don't forget, you control this world. It is up to you to reset the tone and continue it on.
Yeah.
So don't be discouraged, don't be disheartened. It can be remaintained. And maybe if you screwed up, didn't have a talk with your players like, hey guys, I just kind of was letting you roll because that was super funny, but I feel like I lost a part of this world that was really important. And I think they'll respect you for that. As far as moving forward on what you're gonna do, that's really situational and up to you and your players. All right, let's get our player perspective, and then we'll jump on to Talmar's question.
Can I add something real quick to what you just said though?
Absolutely, positively.
Ever.
Um,
Not
uh,
once.
Shut it down. Shut it
Yeah.
down. Oh,
okay, I'll just leave now. Uh, kind
No.
of to add on to that a little bit, where don't be afraid to tell your players, I didn't think you guys were gonna do that. Give me like 10 minutes. Everyone take like a snack break. I need 10 minutes to figure out like what happens as a result of that. Uh,
Breaks are your friends. Breaks are your friends. Absolutely.
yeah. Don't feel like you have to improv everything. Like sometimes your players hit you with a curveball and you're not 100% sure how it's supposed to work, and that's perfectly okay. You're not a video game machine. You're not a perfect engine. Sometimes you need 10 minutes to think about it.
Chaos might be.
Well, I mean,
All right. Thank you so much for that one, Foresight. All right. Robo, player perspective. Hit us with that. Setting the tone. What do you do as a player to maintain tone or to help set the tone? Do you feel like it's really important, or is it challenging for you?
Setting the tone as a player, this is in my opinion. I'm waiting for all you DMs to yell at me. Is
Give us time.
it's almost just as important as the DM setting the tone. If your players take a serious campaign lightly and run wild with it and don't give a shit about the fact that you're trying to set up an air of mystique or like a horror campaign, or you're like Eltigrad and they just, if we were taking Eltigrad lightly and just throwing our characters willy-nilly and not giving a crap about what was going to happen to them, in my opinion, it would undermine the entire campaign, and it would
Yeah.
it would make it would turn into
Trivialize it.
something that it would exactly trivialize it, and it would make it entirely just something else. It would make it a meme, really. And if you're playing a meme campaign and you're playing something that's supposed to be goofy and jovial and lighthearted the whole time and something not meant to be taken seriously, then great. But even if you have a player, like maybe it's an edgelord who's taking that campaign and taking it super seriously, but it's not in like the funny way where it's like, oh, they're obviously, oh, look, this is supposed to be a joke and they're taking it seriously, haha. But they're just getting they're getting upset because the other players are taking things lightly, but they're taking it seriously. It can cause discord amongst the party if all of your players aren't on the same page with what this campaign is supposed to be about. If you have a
100%.
horror campaign and you have two players who are just like la di da di da, we don't care. We're gonna just oh no, there might be a monster around the corner, and the rest of the players are role playing super hard and trying to get in the mindset of a character that's panicking and scared and terrified and worried about what their next step is gonna be. Um, then like I said, it's gonna cause the players that are taking it seriously to not want to play with them anymore. It's gonna make it not as enjoyable. Your players taking the theme and adding to it and increasing its value is so important. Otherwise, if they're not invested, then they're not gonna want to play.
A-
It's as simple as that.
Absolutely. Don't forget, players, the DM might set the tone, but you're the ones who validate it. You're the ones who give it weight. 100%. All right. Did we hit everyone on that one? I think so. Artificer, did you get a chance to speak on that one?
We really want him to speak.
I do, usually.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
I
right.
did.
Excellent. Let's jump over to Tal Maru's question. Thank you so much for posing a question in the chat. We appreciate it. And the question was, how do you balance plot versus agency? Any good ways to railroad your players and make them feel like it was their idea? can I just say, first off, I love your question. Second off, there's a lot of ways to approach this. Some bad and some good. To go over them all, hell, we could do a whole freaking podcast just on this.
Yeah, no kidding.
I will briefly touch on two things that I've done. Adapt your plot to your player's agency. That is tricky, and that is a skill that you'll need to develop. But as a storyteller, and as a DM, improv is part of this game. If you're too rigid, you're not going to be able to adapt to them. If you are laying out a story for them and they aren't following your story, I'm sorry, forgive me. If you lay out a story for them and they're following your story to a T and you know exactly what's going to happen at every turn, I would venture to say you're playing D&D wrong. Because the DM should be just as surprised at what's going to happen next as the players. I think that you should have goals in mind that you need to meet, and those goals should be flexible so that when your players do something wildly audacious that throws everything out the fucking window, and by God they will do it as often as they can. You need to have a story that can adapt to it, or the skill set to come up with something on the fly that will still stay in line with your overall goal, but will not do disservice to their agency, because the fun of being a player in this game is having that agency, is being able to affect and influence this world. And if your plot is so rigid that they can't do that, I once again would venture to say they're probably not going to have that much fun. The other thing I've heard is the illusion of choice, which is a great method. And I would probably say use these two things interchangeably, because there's going to be some things, like I said, you have that overarching goal that you can't bend on, that you need to achieve so that, you can progress this storyline you had. It's a really difficult balance to strike. And it's hard to say if there's a right answer or a right way to do it. But those are kind of the methods that I've used. And I'll pass the baton up to whoever kind of wants to go first on this one. This is a juicy one, guys. So dig your teeth in.
I'm good to chime in.
Yeah,
Um,
get it, girl.
yeah, doing it. I'm doing it. Okay, so I view plot, agency of players, railroading, all of that. I'm a big fan of like I like to construct a very basic story framework. Like if you view it like a house, I like to have a nice solid foundation, right? Like this is the world, these are the things, this is what this person, this NPC, who I'm viewing as another character, as another active part of this world, is doing, right? They're doing this thing. They're gonna react to what the players do in unpredictable ways that even I don't know. Like, okay, I know that their personality is this, so they're gonna react to the thing players are doing this way by doing this. Like, I'm never like I know what their goals are. I know what the big bad misunderstood guy is gonna do, but I know that they may not succeed and things may go awry, and that's part of the fun. Like the best way to like make sure your players have agency is quite literally reward them and punish them for their choices, like hand in hand. Let them realize that their choices are having impact on this world consistently, and let them basically have to deal with the consequences, both positive and negative, of their choices. Um, it actually it's a lot more fun when your players are the ones that are basically leading the plot. Like again, you construct the world, and they live in it, and sometimes they will create far worse situations for themselves than you ever could have imagined, and they are their own worst enemies. It's great. It genuinely it makes my life so much easier.
Ooh, Berry Boy 69. Thank you for following. Sorry to interrupt you.
You're good. I'm done. That was really all I
That
had.
was really well said, and I would agree 100%. They are a living entity in this world, and just like we have reactions and actions that cause reactions, they should too. Consequences, all that good stuff. All right, let's pass it over to Foresight.
Hello, I am Foresight. Um,
Just in case
um,
anyone
Pleasure.
forgot.
yeah,
It's a
just in case
pleasure.
anyone forgot. Usually if you're having trouble putting your players on a railroad, try using rope. That is really effective in getting them. No, uh,
Tie them up and just wait for the train.
no. I think
Legal disclaimer: Foresight does not speak for the rest of the DMs at this joint.
I'm just really quick.
yet, but I will get them on the railroad and then I will speak for them. Um,
Oh, that was perfect.
so the first kind of thought on this is a natural extension of what I was saying earlier about when you don't know what you need to do, take a break. Um, know that each session is going to end, and if you can, try to steer it so that they are making their choices towards the end of a session, so that when you come back to the next session, you have prepared based on their choices. And so that there's not in that way you and a lot of your content's not going to go to waste because they've already made the choice. They've already done the thing that they're going to do. You're just playing it out at that point. um Obviously that's going to be hard for a lot of the micro decisions. Sometimes your players are going to want to befriend a bear that you didn't think they were going to want to befriend, and you got to roll with it. And suddenly they have a bear companion. You got to figure out how that works. uh, not being specific at all.
My daughters did
And
just that, and then they taught it how to dance and made a shit ton of money in the tavern.
my players have done no training. They simply lead it along with food, and it's interesting. Uh, um, but yeah, and then I had another thought, but I think it's lost on me. Come back to me. I had another thought, but I have to find it again.
All right, we will circle back. Artificer.
I mean, no offense, it's gonna go off the railroad. You just have to prepare for it. And no offense, if I have something planned, they will get to it eventually. Because, I may have it where they have to go explore basic thing, a cave somewhere outside of town, right? And they totally want to go to the, to like the docks to go find work and for unloading cargo. Well, mysteriously at the docks, one of the ship captains has lost a couple of crewmates for some reason. Mysteriously. Look at that. It all ties back to the cave. So yeah, whatever I want them to do, I can make it work my narrative for them to do what I have planned. But that's not to say that they totally go off the railroad, like going back to the story of the girl wanting to go feed chickens at the farm. I mean, hey, got to go with it when you can.
Heard. Um, you're definitely not going to derail the stream. That sounds amazing, and we will definitely touch on that. We got about 20 minutes left. Player perspective. That one might be kind of tricky for you.
Not really, actually. I have
Huh?
a lot to say about this.
Lay it on us. Lay it on us.
Ah, crap! Here we go.
Yeah.
A novice player will probably not know when the DM is beating them with a stick trying to get them to go in a certain direction. So you can get away with that. A experienced player, someone who's played countless sessions, who's put hundreds of hours into playing, who knows how to form a character, knows how to play a campaign. You can't beat that player into submission. If they have something that if they're trying to do something a certain way, 9 times out of 10 they're going to be doing it because it's what their character would do. For whatever reason, it's part of their backstory. It has something to do with what their character's goals are. And they're not going to be doing it to derail the campaign intentionally. But their goals might just not line up entirely with what you're trying to do as a DM. So with those players, it's less of the stick, you need more of the carrot. If you're trying to force a player to move in a certain direction to accomplish a certain thing and you act like you're going to give them other options, I guarantee you, just based on the law that everything that can go wrong will go wrong, they will take the other options. So like what Artificer has said is having it tie back around to where eventually you want them going is a fantastic way of doing it. But if you truly do just throw a bunch of options out there, hoping that they're going to make what you think is the right choice. If you say, hey, there's a big bad evil force heading to this place, but there's something one of the characters really wants in this other place, and you guys got to choose where to go, you're going to end up with a party splitting. Because they will not all make the choice that you think's right and go to take on the evil force. That one character will inevitably take that bait, not give it up, and then you'll find one character that has a bond with that character a little better than the others, say, never mind, I'm not doing that, I'm going with them. And then you're going to end up with a two-way split, and you're going to have to DM for a split party, which in my opinion is a nightmare.
I would disagree on that, but I'll let you have it.
It's just my opinion.
I think it depends. It depends on the players. It depends on the DM, and it depends on the situation.
Yeah.
It can be a nightmare.
It
I
can be
agree.
super duper fun too.
Keeping in mind, I'm not talking about as a DM.
Yeah, that's
DMing
true.
for them
I
is a nightmare.
apologize.
I'm saying as a player, having a split party is a nightmare because you end up sitting there and watching and waiting for it to be your turn again for about an hour and a half while the DM talks about everything that's going on with this other group, and they all have things they want to do, and they all have things they want to be a part of and interact with, and you're waiting there for your turn, and then it's your turn, and you're getting going, you're getting into it for an hour, and then all of a sudden it's okay, back to the other party, and it can be really hard to balance that and to keep that attention and keep interested and keep focused when you're just like waiting for your turn.
That
Yeah.
makes
You
a
know?
lot of sense. A lot of
Two,
sense.
two things I'd like to kind of say as a reaction to that. The first one is I as someone who's also been a player, obviously. Um, I feel like you can still get enjoyment out of other people doing things, if that makes sense. Like I don't whenever a lot of the times when I'm playing, I don't think of it necessarily like this is my character story, and that kind of goes to the kind of like the protagonist, I'm the main character type of thing. Your group is the story, and so I think having a vested interest in what's happening over there can at least help with that. That being said, as a DM, I would say that you need to be good at time management. So you shouldn't be having the thing where you're having an hour with half your group and an hour with the other group. You should be switching it every like 15 minutes, even if that breaks up the action in one individual scene.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be giving your players, ample time to be doing stuff. You shouldn't. If you're having your players wait for an hour, you're not doing it right. Is like my opinion.
I would agree, and I jump back between 10 and 15 minutes, and I often use it as a tension building mechanism. Honestly,
Yes.
I've had a lot of split party running, and so maybe it's just me, but I have really gotten down. Okay, we're gonna stop and jump back to them. We're gonna stop and jump back to them, and you just gotta find these perfect moments where it's like, oh crap, I have to wait now. Oh my god, this is murder. Because you're just on the edge of your seat, and that tends to keep people pretty engaged. But
Yeah.
again, that's DM perspective and not player perspective. So
To speak on it again real quick. I mean, it definitely can be done well. I'm not saying that it can't be done well from a DM. Uh, as a player who is into the role play as much as I am, and into gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, how character actors, they stay in character the whole time.
method
mean their
acting,
their
Method
immersion?
acting. Yeah,
immersion.
exactly.
There you go. Yeah, well said,
It
artificer.
can Yeah, it's perfect. It can break my immersion when I'm playing, and I can understand some party splitting, and most party splitting in with when you have experienced players is usually for a good reason. But if there's a way to avoid it as a player, oftentimes I have found myself doing something that my character would not do to avoid splitting the party,
Mm.
because I know, just with like based on the people I'll play with, oh my gosh, if we split the party here, I'm gonna have to sit and my immersion's gonna be broken. I'm gonna have to wait, and I know there's players in my group that as soon as the party splits are gonna pull out their phones and are gonna lose interest,
Yeah.
and it might not be the end of the world for the party to split and for that for people to have to wait, but just because one person can sit and enjoy the other people's story, if I know in my head I'm not supposed to be hearing any of this isn't something my character would know, I try and shut it off, because I don't want I don't want a metagame. I don't want that to affect how I'm gonna play. If I know in my head, oh, the other party is in trouble right now, they're in danger and they could get wiped out.
Yeah,
And
Oh, sorry.
oh, and it might, if my character was just waiting for them to get back because for whatever reason my character thought it was more important to stay where they are than go to this thing, I might, it's really hard to know.
Yeah,
We could potentially have a character loss or a
yeah.
character death if I keep staying here, but part of me is like, oh, but I know they're in danger. I could
Yeah.
go and
Gotta
save them.
gotta ixnay the metagaming then. I'll say
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
utilized chat channels for that where I have the split party going to another chat channel.
What if you're
Um
playing in person?
different room would be my best. I don't have a lot of experience there, so I can't really speak on that.
Yeah.
You can't really send them to a different room. I mean, you could,
You
but
could walk away with them to a different room.
You
I've
can
done that
do
before.
anything, baby.
yeah, personally, when that's happened with me, I come back in the room and people are like, literally have turned on like a switch and are playing Smash or something, and I just am like, oh, well, you guys are not immersed at all right now, are you? Or I felt the same way where I like struggled to stay immersed, stay in character, and stay appreciative of the fact that I came here to play D&D.
I mean,
You know, Why am I not playing D&D right now?
And not to battle you on this, but I would go so far as to say that's okay. Take a break for a few minutes. Maybe think about what your character's gonna do. Let the mystery kind of envelop you. Maybe, and then this is just from a friend to a friend. Like, maybe kind of roll with it and let it be another challenge for you. It's okay if you break that immersion while they're doing that for a second, because I think you as a player, and this is just kind of going off the wall, like you as a player, you are such a high caliber player as you maintain such engagement and investment. Try not to look at it as a negative. Look at it as another layer to this. That's just my 2 cents. But anyway,
Well,
I mean, you mean go
I
ahead,
actually,
go
well,
ahead.
yeah, I don't know. I just had a follow-up question. So I think you've pointed on something that can definitely be a problem at a table where the party's splitting and it's breaking immersion. I definitely agree that I've seen that happen. I don't think you're describing an impossible scenario at all.
definitely not.
What
Definitely
what
not.
would you say from the player's perspective then is the solution for that not happening or being made better?
So one thing I do want to just bring up really quick is that when I'm answering for the player's perspective, I'm trying to take most of myself out of the equation because I know how I play, and it's different how everybody else plays.
But that's why we brought you here, was for your specific
Well,
perspective, my
I,
man.
I'll throw a little bit of that in there, but I'm trying to make it a little more of a general, like the other players I know, factoring in how they would react as well, because I feel like DMs as players it's such a unique
The different
experience
mentality for
playing
sure.
exactly.
Yeah.
If a DM drops down to play, they're gonna play the game differently than someone who just plays and doesn't DM.
Yeah.
They're gonna bear the DM in mind when they do it. I would say Andrew, or oh my bad, dox you, Robo. I would say that we brought you here to hear your perspective. I can't really speak on other DMs' perspectives. So stay true to yourself there, man. And I mean I think you've been doing a great job with it. And I think you do point out very, very valid things because maintaining that player engagement is really important. Um,
And the devil's advocate's kind of fun too. So
yeah,
Well,
you're really good at that too. You are really good at that.
I don't feel like it's devil's advocate though. I feel like it's valid points that like need to be considered.
Yeah,
And
for
I
sure.
mean, and I also want to point out that like when I'm playing as a player, oh no, I'm not nice to my DM. I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna make you work for it. Like this is like this
Oh.
is gonna be hard. We're gonna have a lot of engagement, but like I'm gonna make you work for this. I want you to throw out a lot. Like I love like give me a fucking like path of nature cleric. I want to speak to all the animals. I want you to do all the voices. Like this is what I
Oh
want
my
for my
god.
life.
Come be a player in my game, please.
um I
No.
I what?
Sorry, freaking Jake TG, the alignment sandwich. You're about to break us all right now. Okay, let's jump back on target. We've got 8 minutes left. I don't know if we'll be able to get through this last topic, but I would like to try.
Let's shoot for it. Let's shoot for
Yeah,
it.
let's try to run through it. So the last topic from the poll was building up for session 1.
I can be quick.
Hit it.
I literally I send my players information packets. I will all the lore that
Damn.
I've constructed. I and so, sometimes it's not as condensed as an information packet. Sometimes it's like 5 Google Docs, but you know, it's stuff.
I like
And
I
didn't
like how you presented it to us though. It sounded really good.
Thank you. That was like my very like groomed answer. Yeah, no, I send them information. I genuinely am like, hey, like I'll answer questions you have about this. Here is the information that you will want to know when creating your character. And if you want more information, like I could give you stuff depending on the backstory you're doing. But like here's the basic information. Here are the gods. Here are the major countries, empires, whatever. Here are the major people that you might know just colloquially in general, and here's the geography. Like, and maybe here's like a small historical timeline of the world. Like that's normally what I like to give. And for me, it also really helps because then I can tell like which players. It's a really good litmus test of like which players are going to be engaged and which players aren't. Because I know if a player's like messaging me a couple days later and asking questions about the lore, I'm like, okay, cool, you're actually engaged. Whereas if someone's like, wait, who's the elven god? I'm like, okay, yeah, you didn't read any of the shit I sent you. Got it. Like, and it's like no judgment either way. It helps me as a DM recognize the players I'm playing with.
Damn. Yeah. Nice. I like it. Foresight.
Hi. So in terms of prep, I think we've talked about most of the stuff I do for prep, which is just most of it's just discussion with the players, and because I don't a lot of the times I don't even start building the world until after I've talked to the players once and figure out what kind of campaign they want to run. Um, I have like a couple settings that I can kind of, mix things a little bit based on what players said and like drop them in there with some changes based on what they want. But sometimes I just need to make an entirely new setting, so I don't like to go in with any expectations of like very much before I've talked to them at least once and figured out what they want to even do. If they want to hunt that dragon or if they want to smuggle drugs. Those are two very different campaigns.
Yeah.
Or
Um,
are they?
Or are
well, I
they?
mean, sometimes they're smuggling dragon drugs, so
Or smuggle
Or,
drugs
or
in the dragon.
or
that's what I
smuggling.
was gonna say.
um, but yeah, and then once I've had that initial talk, once I figured out what they want to do, then I start building stuff or I adapt one of my already existing settings for what they want. And then from there, that's when I start having discussions with them. Okay, here's a little bit more about the world. Here's like a blurb that's relevant to the campaign. They don't always know it's relevant. I'm very good at making like prose that are like, ooh, this sounds really fancy, but there's actually like a bunch of hidden messages in there that they might not catch. And see how they respond to stuff like that, and just see where they see themselves in this world now that I've done that, and just start asking them questions like, okay, so you guys have decided last time that you're gonna hunt dragons. So, why are you hunting dragons? 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 And just figure out what their different reasons for hunting dragons are. Simple as
Fair.
that, really.
Fair. I like it. All right. We've got detail oriented and we've got flexibility and ambiguity. Artificer. I'm guessing you're somewhere in the middle.
I am actually. I do send out information packets, just like we talked about, like on last stream. I do like a traveler's guide brochure
Mm-hmm.
of the overview.
Beautiful. I fucking love it.
I, these are the major cities, kind of the population over stuff. This is what it's kind of popular for. Da 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 da. Yeah, there you go. Um, I also keep it a little flexible, and then I run maybe 30 minutes with them one on one with their characters. So
Very nice.
yeah. And as far as what you were talking about splitting the party, as soon as my party splits, I tell them to roll initiative.
Ooh. There you go.
That way it keeps your balance in between your party. And
Yeah, that makes sense.
no, seriously, whenever I have a party that splits, I have them roll initiative and I bring out a 1-minute timer.
Actually, I really like that.
Not a bad idea. It keeps it on track.
So it's like,
Yeah.
it's the it's okay. So it's your turn. Okay, go. Click. I flip the timer and they're like, and if you do nothing, like, all right, so you sit there. I got it. Next. Okay, we'll go to you. This move. Next. Back.
So
Forward.
you
Back.
sit there.
100%.
I said,
I feel like with experienced players, that probably works a lot better
Yeah.
than newer players.
Yeah.
yeah. So
He
like,
increases the timer to 2 minutes for new players.
There you go.
Minute and a
that's-
half. Minute and a half.
Minute and a half. Yeah.
30 seconds.
no, usually by like the third go around, the inexperienced players would like, I want to check the door. Okay, cool. I need you to roll. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
I should do that for just normal initiative because I have some players that will just dilly dally through their turns and it's the
I do-
worst.
Yes.
Another beautiful thing about Foundry, built-in timer.
Okay, at this point, either suck Foundry's dick or like stop talking about it, because like you can't.
How do you
can't-
Yeah,
know-
yeah, yeah. You're doing
How-
all this free advertisement for nothing, man. Come on, at least
How-
get paid for this whoring. Like,
How do you know
threw-
that I
threw the
haven't
petition
already?
I threw the petition up in the Discord.
I don't see any
Ayy.
stains on your face.
Boundaries, shooting blanks. I don't know what to tell you. Anyway,
But yeah, I pull a timer online and in real life. So yeah, if you're like him hawing around, guess what? Sorry, like especially if we're in the middle of combat and it's a pretty intense situation. Do you know how fast 6 seconds goes in a battle? Obviously you don't, because you're taking a dodge edge this round. Moving on, next person.
yeah.
I love it. I think that was what was it? Foresight, when you were going through my homebrew rules and I was like, turns are timed at the DM's discretion. You dropped that how could you say something so controversial yet so true meme on me.
Yeah.
It should be done. It should be done. Excellent. Let's see. Let's jump over to the player perspective here.
Shoot, dude. You're really gonna throw that on me right now?
You get your I can go first. So I would say everything that everyone here has already said. No, I'm just kidding.
What a cop out. No.
Pretty much.
Lame.
Bullshit.
I
Lame.
really try to give just a basic overview of the world. I don't do any information packets or anything. I go over it in session 0. And I do a lot of one-on-one texting with my players personally, where they ask me things and we answer questions. But a lot of it, I just kind of like give them, what would this person know in this world? All right, they would know that there's a city here, here, and here. They would know that this church is in power. They would know that these are the rulers. They would know that, these are kind of the outside forces that you have to be worried about. And then we fill in the gaps as we play. Part of the fun to me is them kind of like figuring stuff out. Sure, sometimes I have to go back and be like, hey, your character would know this based on what you have, and that's a hole that I forgot to fill. But yeah, that's kind of about it. I gear them up as much as I can with kind of a baseline knowledge of what their person would know, and then we fill in the gaps as we go along. That's my own style, though, and I think it falls somewhere between Foresights and Artificer and Chaos's. It's worked really well for me, though, and it gives you a good amount of fluidity with still having, your bare bones structure. It can still make the world feel alive, and I will say that I probably could do a little more. An information packet sounds like a good idea. I'm here to learn too. I don't know the right way, so I might start working on my own information packet. We'll see. We'll see how that goes.
I look forward for Friday.
Hey, that's gonna be session 0. The informational packet will come afterwards.
I'm sorry. You're not giving me an information packet during session 0. I need lore immediately. I don't think you understand.
What have we been talking about for these last 2
Man,
things?
Hey, as I said, I'm not a good player. Like, I'm gonna make your life hard. I've already expressed this. Like, you should not be surprised.
Heard.
Honestly, same. I'm always I go to the DM like, all right, so tell me about your world so I can figure out how to make my character. And they're like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I want to know. I don't want to make
Yeah.
my character before you make the world.
Hey,
No, fuck that.
don't look at our session 0 on Friday. We're gonna be deciding what setting we're gonna play in and what's fun to you all. Then I'll work up all the lore and slang it.
I
at
want
you.
it to only be water levels.
Wait,
I
you
want it to
the
only be water
player-
levels.
I was about to say, you want the players to come in and discuss what they want the world to be? Oh no.
I mean,
No.
not just the players, but the viewers too. We're gonna be doing this
Oh,
on
God.
stream.
Well, I'm sorry. Viewers get input in what it is. That's a terrible idea.
They get to roll dice, is what I've been
Yeah.
told by him.
All right. That might be
They
interesting.
get input. Doesn't necessarily mean we'll always go along with it because it could be
long-
audaciously
as
crazy.
long as-
But that goes for
as
my
lo-
players too.
What I understand is
Nah.
I can donate 10 cents 100 times and get 100 d8s to roll.
That's not
in a
how that
session.
works. That's not how that works.
I can find the chat where you agreed to that scenario.
Artificer rolled or paid $150 for 150 d8s. Okay.
I'll get my devil lawyers on your ass. They'll bring you to the 9 rings of hell
Hey,
to sue your ass.
read the fine print. Subject to
That's what
change.
I'm sorry. I'm just seeing in the chat, and this is how we ended up in a self-aware magic punk Victorian spaghetti western detective noir campaign.
Talmaru, would you like to be part of that campaign? That's my next question. I'm kind of down to run that. I'm kind of down to run that.
Sounds so terrible.
but so perfect at the same time.
I was gonna say it's like so wrong, but yet I want.
Honestly, it's the spaghetti part that I would be excited for, because everything else you could do, but I don't know how you add the spaghetti.
Yeah, the spaghetti western's really the weird part that like messes it
No,
up.
Leave that to me. I got you covered.
The
All right.
spaghetti is separate from the western. It's just spaghetti.
Oh, it's just spaghetti. Oh,
It's
okay.
just
I was
spaghetti.
misreading it. Now it makes more
Get outta
sense to me.
here.
All
right, guys.
No, that's easy. Everyone's made of pasta.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you got your lasagnas, you got your bolognese. Like you just
I'm an Alfredo. My mama was chicken.
And all the pasta nation lived in harmony until the penne attacked.
We must
All right, guys.
gather our pastafarians to worship the almighty spaghetti.
It would have to be some kind of questionable pasta that we'd have to put on a chart to make to even check and see if it's pasta.
No, you get out of here with your damn food alignments.
What's a type of German pasta? Like if we just do that, it'll be fine.
Spätzle.
There we go.
Yeah,
Spätzle.
Spätzle attack.
Spätzles. All right, guys. And on that note, why don't we all? Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was going to say we have come for your cream sauce.
God,
I love it. All right.
At this point now, you have to do this.
That is going to be the end of our stream tonight, guys. Come back and join us every Tuesday for DM discussions. We're probably going to be branching out. We were working on session 0 these last 2 times. If you guys could give me a bunch of love for my awesome guests here. Foresight, say goodnight.
Good night.
Chaos.
Okay.
Robo.
What up? Thank you, everybody.
And Artificer.
Citizen.
All right. Thank you, Koto, for
He got a
joining.
cool one. No fair.
And let me throw out a little plug for my boy Robo. What are you gonna be streaming tomorrow, my friend?
Journey to the Savage World.
I auto host all of his streams, so be looking out for that.
Savage Planet, sorry. It's gonna be great. I'm doing it kind of like a la Game Grumps, where I'm gonna have me and another person. We're gonna be doing some just talking about the game and breaking down some stuff and having a good time while we play it together. Even though it's single player, we'll switch off and stuff. It'll be fun.
All right.
Good.
Excellent.
I'll be watching it on the flight.
Yeah. Everyone that's in the chat right now, feel free to join the Discord. We're going to be having our after hours post-stream wrap-up in the VC. Everyone is welcome to join and come chat with us.
Let me throw that link up in there real quick.
Yeah, please do. It's been a blast, guys. Thank you so much. This has been super informative for me as well. I hope it's been really informative for everyone else. Think up those questions, drop them in the Discord, and come see us next week. All right? Take care, everyone. Good night.
Night.
Bye, guys.